Last night, the police were searching for a dangerous criminal who had hidden in a hospital. Police cars surrounded the building, and the commander of the operation used a loudspeaker to demand that the man put down his weapon and release the hostages. Afterward, he asked the sniper what the probability was of killing the criminal without hitting the hostage, and he was told it was 10%. At the same time, Lewis said that the man was acting too unprofessionally. His great emotionality gives the sniper the opportunity for a direct hit to the head. Moments later, the man hid behind the patient's back. Jack realized that their plan had been exposed, and he ordered the assault on the building to begin. Lewis spoke again, advising the criminal to hide in some remote place and to close all the windows and doors, fearing the assault team. Carl listened to the hostage's advice and hurried to cover the window. The police did not understand how the man was able to anticipate their actions. The commander said that this person had something very important, so they needed a new plan. Meanwhile, the criminal was watching the actions of the law enforcement agencies, and he couldn't understand why they weren't taking any action. In the next moment, a thought struck him. Could it be that they know about that thing he has? The hero noticed the man's distress and told him that he had bigger problems, as he was planning to escape using a hostage. But the police had cornered him. After the boy's words, Carl turned to him, aiming the gun at him, saying that he wouldn't allow him to speak and could kill him at any moment. Lewis just laughed at him, asking if he had read the name of this place carefully. Klaus, confused, asked what was so special about this place. The guy replied that he had only been living in this hospital for 2 months. The criminal cursed after hearing his hostage's words. The hero confirmed the man's thoughts, saying that a dying person has nothing left to fear. Hiding his smile in the shadows, he asked why the man had been inspecting himself so closely just a few seconds ago, wondering if he was hiding something valuable. The man didn't have time to react when a pillow flew into his face. Lewis took advantage of this to get closer to the criminal. The hero struck the opponent in the face. In the next moment, he knocked the man to the floor. Vulnerable, Carl asked if the guy had deceived him. Lewis replied that there was no deception. He indeed had little time left to live, but not because of an illness. Afterward, he sat next to the criminal, feeling around in his vest pocket. A few moments later, he pulled out a small box, asking if this was the item the police were hunting him for. Carl asked the guy to return the item to him. The hero was curious about what was inside and opened the box. He was surprised when a golden glow poured out from it. A moment later, golden rays surrounded him, and a voice in the young man's head informed him that a recording of the time travel was being made. The man looked at the guy in horror, saying that he had activated an account from another world, and now he could not escape a tragic end. Lewis struck him again, saying that he was already doomed to die. After picking up a gun, he said that if Carl didn't provide more details about this account, he would die. The criminal had no choice but to agree. He said that the meteor shower that occurred in the year 2800 significantly changed their world. Some people gained the ability to move to another world and complete tasks, after which they returned back. As a reward for passing the trials, one could receive medicines for all ailments, treasures from that world, and various other goods. The emergence of another world greatly destabilized the order of the native universe, and people began to kill travelers between worlds, wishing to uncover the secret of crossing spaces. After going through a series of games and battles, people discovered that the key to movement lies in a special item called the Account of Another World. Those who receive this account gain a special mark, and teleportation to another dimension occurs within 15 minutes. A few minutes later, an armed group burst into the room. They expected to see anything, but certainly not what lay before their eyes. The criminal was sitting tied to a chair by the window. Meanwhile, Lewis received a notification that his first trial would begin in a minute. Looking at the timer, he pondered the information he had received. He concluded that no matter how much time had passed since the journey to another world, in reality, it was just a moment. Putting away his phone, he stood at the very edge of the roof. He regretted that, when moving, he could not take anything with him except for the clothes on his back. In the next moment, he noticed that the criminal was being put into a police car. The system once again notified the boy that in 10 seconds he would enter the testing space. He did not feel fear. He was happy that he managed to find the supernatural world a few months before his end. In the next moment, his surroundings changed, and a voice announced that the connection of the traveler was beginning. The hero barely had time to understand anything before he found himself standing in an unfamiliar place surrounded by other travelers. The system reported that after the character creation is completed, the participant can view the character map at any time using the power of thought. Lewis looked around with interest. After that, he summoned his character's map. After examining all the characteristics, he realized that he needed to level up his skills because he was at the very lowest level. He was distracted from his thoughts by voices behind him. Someone was advertising their new green level product, a poisonous sword. The men looked at the offered product with skepticism. Charlie said that this sword is a reward for completing the trial at the parallel level. He explained that there are 4 levels of trials: paper, parallel, strong, and cruel, and so far no one has passed the cruel level, but many have completed the parallel and strong levels, which is where blue and green level weapons come from. The merchant bragged that this poisonous sword is a stolen item from a player who is in the top 50 of the hate list. Bidding for the weapon began among the crowd after the words were heard. Charlie was pleased that everyone fell for his tricks and he would be able to make a good profit. Suddenly, an alarm sounded in the public zone. Everyone was informed that an extremely dangerous person was attempting to enter the zone. Moments later, a law enforcement squad from the zone appeared. They were targeting the criminal who was number 1 on the hate list. When everyone started to scatter, the hero realized that the knights were aiming for him. Upon seeing them, Charlie immediately began to gather his goods, tossing them into his bag on the go. Before he could gather everything, 2 knights rushed towards him. Charlie and Lewis were both running for their lives. The merchant asked, "Could it be that the kid is also a criminal?" The hero replied that they didn't have time for idle chatter. They needed to hide from the pursuit. Suddenly, the system announced that he had been placed on the hate list and was number 1 among the most dangerous criminals, with his current 6-star index. This means that they would try to eliminate him by any means necessary. Seeing the portal in front of them, Charlie shouted that they could teleport if they entered it. The knight saw where his target was heading and decided to use a ranged attack. At that moment, Lewis was just a couple of centimeters from the portal when the system announced that his hate level exceeded the allowable threshold. The portal let him through at the last moment, just as the attack was about to hit the guy. Charlie watched the explosion from the knight's attack. He missed his chance to escape. Lewis found himself in a new location when the system informed him that he was starting a trial of cruel difficulty, where death in this trial leads to death in reality, and his goal is to survive until the end. A moment later, an entity appeared and announced the beginning of the trial. "Do not fear death." After that, the spotlights turned on, shining down on the hero, and thanks to the light, he was able to make out the outlines of the crowd surrounding him. The boy was curious about what would happen next, as the beginning was quite good. Meanwhile, the host said that the show is sponsored by the Spatial Committee, as well as the inexhaustible dimension of loners. Lewis concluded that this program is similar to blind dating. Previously, the guy was a heartbreaker, but after the injury, he had no opportunity to meet with his admirers. Edison said that now they would find out what the strength of their guest was, and he was greatly surprised when he saw that the guest only had a paper level. A moment later, he announced that it was the first time such a candidate had appeared on stage. The hero asked the system if there was any explanation for such a level of strength. In the next moment, a system window appeared, from which he learned that the paper level is the weakest parallel level. The level with mediocre combat power is strong, the strong level requires great combat power, and the cruel level is the most powerful level. The guy summarized the data. He ended up in trials for players at the boss level, and if he dies, he will die permanently. Meanwhile, Edison continued, saying that Lewis is the best in history. He will be able to show them the most beautiful and epic death, as only those players whose deaths are the most outstanding make it to this scene. The hero interrupted his monologue, stating that he had previously mentioned this was a show about blind dates and Lewis had already been waiting for it to start. Edison noted that the guy was behaving extremely confidently. After that, he moved on to introduce the first girl. A moment later, she stepped onto the stage. Lewis expected to see a human girl, but not a monster. The host said that Miss Tender Lips is the star of his show. She feeds on people's fear. She loves to ask the candidate about her beauty, after which she devours him, causing terror. The guy shouted that the girl was very pretty, and the thought of being eaten did not flatter him. When the host announced girl number 2, the contestant appeared before the candidate in the blink of an eye. She had a human upper body, while the lower part of her torso was that of a spider. Edison said that she is their special guest, a girl who loves to lay her eggs in her partner so that he can carry the offspring instead of her. However, since all her partners are dead, she had to come to this show again. When the hero was asked what he thought of her, he immediately said that she was incomparably beautiful. After that, the girl left the stage and the host invited the next contestant. A giantess stepped onto the stage. Edison announced that she was a famous butcher who once tortured 16 of her partners. In the next moment, she let out her battle roar. Lewis was horrified by this sight. He asked if she was really a girl. The giantess heard his words, which stung her heart. When the contestant, with tears in her eyes, rushed back, Edison asked the guy to refrain from comments in the style of gender equality, or he would be excluded from the show. The hero was upset that there were no normal girls here who met human standards. The host heard him and said that they have such a girl, their last contestant, the most famous beauty in their world, who is renowned for her cruelty. The man's words intrigued the boy. When Edison invited a girl to the stage, no one showed up, not even a few minutes later. The host received a message and stated that the guest is too lazy to come and will be looking for a partner from home. She is currently watching everything through the broadcast. Having said this, he continued, explaining the rules of the show. The guy must spend the whole day outside the house, together with the girls, in warm and close relationships. Now the guy is supposed to go outside, where he is already expected. Meanwhile, Charlie was in the courtroom. He explained that he is not familiar with Lewis. He was running away from the knights because he was sure they were targeting him, but he was just an ordinary merchant. After listening to the guy, the head of the court said that they had conducted an investigation and found that he was indeed not connected to the first among the most dangerous criminals. The merchant with the accusation sighed in relief, glad that the threat had receded. But in the next moment, the head continued, saying that for trading counterfeit weapons, he is sentenced to exile in the City of Hatred, and before that, he will be assigned 200 points of hatred. After the verdict, Charlie was immediately dragged out of the courtroom. One of those present asked whether they should continue the search for the particularly dangerous criminal. The leader replied that there was no need for that because at his current level of abilities, he would not survive the brutal trial. Meanwhile, Diana was venting her anger on the prey, butchering it. She was outraged by Lewis's words and vowed to kill him at their next meeting. The hero received a system notification informing him that all the girls were friendly towards him, except for the giantess. Suddenly, Diana attacked him from behind, intending to kill. The guy stood still, feeling the sword approaching him. He only asked where the beauty was that he had accidentally offended. The blade stopped just a couple of centimeters from him. Diana couldn't believe her ears. Lewis continued to say that even though he is known for his charm, he has never met such an amazing girl. He lamented that he could not immediately see the tenderness hidden beneath such a beautiful, strong body. Diana listened to his words with bated breath. She had never been told such things. The guy sincerely admitted that he had never seen such a person. She attracted him. He felt the girl's kind, caring, and strong character. The system reported that Diana's attitude changed from hatred to friendliness. Lewis continued to ingratiate himself with her, saying that he made a mistake by missing such a wonderful girl. He will no longer find anyone like her among thousands of beauties. The giantess's heart was ready to leap with joy as she listened to the boy's words. When the system notified the hero that the girl's feelings had changed to infatuation, he decided to continue. Lewis uttered a phrase he had once heard, stating that true beauty lies not outside but within. Kneeling before the flower, he concluded that it was precisely for this reason that beautiful flowers grow in this eerie place. Lewis thinks that Diana is just like that. After his words, she dropped her weapon. When the guy turned around, he saw a happy girl. The system reported that its favor towards the candidate has increased to the level of fantasy. Now he can choose this participant as his wife. In the next moment, the girl confessed that she was very touched by his words and finally made up her mind. When Lewis asked what exactly she meant, Diana began to take a deep breath. He had a sudden realization about what she wanted to do. A couple of seconds later, the giantess screamed at the top of her lungs, causing the guy's ears to ring. Diana informed the remaining guests that from this moment on, Lewis belongs to her. The hero was not pleased by the fact that the attitude of the two remaining girls had changed to disgust. The happy giantess headed towards the object of her affection. She said that they would be together forever. Suddenly, sticky web stuck to her feet. In the next moment, she fell to the ground. Diana was trying to understand what had happened when a web net was already flying down at her from above. And in the next second, she was pinned to the ground. The spider woman asked the giantess to hand over the boy for re-education. Diana struggled to lift herself off the ground, but she said that he belonged to her and no one dared to touch him. After her words, Erica turned to the hero, asking if he was willing to bear a child for her. Lewis noticed that her attitude towards him changed after Diana's words. So if he answers no, he is very likely to be killed, which means he needs to take the initiative. The guy looked at the girl with disdain, asking who allowed her to speak to him like that. Erica was shocked by his question. She did not expect such behavior from her victim. Meanwhile, the hero continued. He asked if she really said that she liked him only because she wanted a child from him. He began to portray himself as a heartbroken man. By stating that the girl wanted to use him merely as a vessel for childbirth, he wonders if she has even a drop of feelings for him. When the spider woman said it wasn't so, the guy pounced on her with questions about how she would explain all of this. They didn't even have a wedding, what surname their child would have, and she just wanted him to have a child for her. The hero was surprised when her attitude changed to friendliness. Moreover, he attracted the attention of another unknown girl. Observing this, Edison reported that the Gender Equality Agency expressed its support for the candidate. In the next moment, he received a message, after which the host informed everyone that Ms. Len had sent a message asking to tell more about the guy. This is the first time this girl has shown interest in anyone. Meanwhile, the hero was pondering that besides these three, there are other beings participating in the trial. In the next moment, he turned at the sound of a voice calling him. Eliza stood before him, and Lewis decided to show himself in order to gain the favor of more participants. Eliza asked the candidate if she was beautiful, but the guest didn't even have time to finish when the hero slapped her. He said with anger in his eyes that he hates insecure people. Doesn't she understand that with such looks, she charms the people around her? Eliza just silently looked at the guy holding her cheek. Meanwhile, Edison was in shock from what was happening. He was sure that the guy was in for a swift punishment for such promiscuity, knowing the girl's behavior. When he looked back at the screen, expecting to see an enraged guest, he saw embarrassment on her face and awkwardness. Eliza tried to sense Lewis's emotions, but she did not see even a hint of fear in his heart. But hers, on the contrary, was beating much faster for reasons unknown to her. At that moment, the hero received a message that his level of hatred was at its peak, and he obtained a new mechanism, a source of evil. He learned that this ability allows objects in contact with him to experience a state of ecstasy for 10 minutes. Looking at the girl, he assumed that she was currently under his influence. Suddenly, she exclaimed that she was burning with desire to taste the guy. After that, Eliza headed towards her goal, saying that they would soon become one. The giantess, who had managed to free herself from the web, blocked the girl's path. Moments later, she sent her rival flying, stating that Lewis belonged only to her. Erica was not idle either. She crept up behind the hero, declaring that despite everything, he would belong to her. The guy turned around and smiling, said that the other guests had a different opinion, pointing behind her. The giantess and Eliza had managed to team up against the Spider-Woman. The hero watched as three monsters of brutal level fought each other for him. He understood the essence of this game. If he chooses one of the girls, the others will hate him and ultimately he will die. But if he just stands by and watches, then when they finish the fight, he will face the monster himself and die. Suddenly, he distracted the girls from the battle, saying that he was very sorry, but he could not choose any of them. The battles do not evoke any positive feelings in him. Eliza asked what he meant. The hero replied that even if they destroyed the whole world, it would not touch him at all. Diana asked if he really wanted to leave them, but the guy answered that he was just a sensitive person. He then proposed the following. Each of them would spend some time alone with him to develop their feelings well. After that, he promised that he would definitely choose a beloved. As soon as this happens, he will do his best to take care of his wife and children. Lewis decided to give them an illusory hope to carry out his plan. When Eliza took his hand, he said that even if he had to die at the hands of his beloved, he would accept it with joy. His words resonated pleasantly in her heart. Afterward, she smiled sweetly, saying that she would definitely prove that only she is suitable for the role of his killer. Sometime later, the couple found themselves at a local cemetery where an unknown monster resided. The system reported that there was 1 hour left until the end of the show. Lewis approached the monster and struck it on the head. Angered by such audacity, a certain little man attacked him. The hero called for Eliza's help when his opponent was dangerously close. The girl instantly found herself behind the monster, asking how it dared to attack her beloved. The vampire wanted to explain himself to her, but in the next moment, Eliza attacked him, tearing out his eye. The monster fled at the first opportunity, clutching at the empty eye socket. Meanwhile, the girl presented the guy with the eye, asking if he liked her gift. When Lewis took it, the system reported that the eye of the vampire is a very valuable material. Then he touched Eliza's shoulder, saying that Ewan had a lot to tell her. At that moment, he activated his suggestion ability. She stated that when he looks at her with that gaze, she gets lost and doesn't know when and how to kill him. The hero realized that her very instinct is to kill him. He embraced the girl, saying that she was the best girl of all he had met, and he would like to die only by her hands. But in the next moment, he said that the show would not allow this to happen, and Eliza did not understand what his words meant. The guy explained that the show is organized for everyone to see how she competes with others. They can't really want the girl to find her happiness. They are just making content out of her. Listening to these words, she concluded that there is some logic to it. Then he pointed somewhere far ahead, saying that there was a monster and that he was very scared. Eliza immediately rushed in that direction to check who dared to scare her chosen one. Lewis, smiling, watched the girl. He thought that if the program was plotting against him, he would prepare them a little surprise. Sometime later, Eliza encountered a monster and immediately dealt with it. She was in a state of ecstasy and could only think about how delicious Lewis would be. A couple of seconds later, the effect of her ability wore off, and the girl came to her senses. The hero received a message that Eliza's attitude has changed to a murderous one. During this time, he subjected Eric to the same technique, and now she is in a state of ecstasy, making her easy to influence. The girl hugged the boy from behind, saying that if he chooses one of the remaining two, he will definitely be killed in the end. But Erica is different from them. She just wants a child from him. When the hero becomes hers, she will protect him by all means. She warned that she cannot wait for his decision forever. And if he does not agree, the girl will immediately kill him. A moment later, Lewis said that if she wants a child, it is in her best interest to protect it properly. The girl confirmed his words, saying that his body is very valuable. After her response, he approached her and whispered in her ear that in this trial, danger awaits him everywhere, and no one cares whether she finds her love or if he can father a child with her. The hero activated the suggestion, stating that such a program needs to be interrupted. Suddenly, a furious scream from Eliza was heard in the distance. The guy said that he rejected her and now she is going to kill him. Immediately after his words, an enraged girl burst onto the clearing. The spider woman protected the guy from the claws of her rival. Lewis made the most innocent and defenseless face he could, saying that it wasn't worth saving him. He deserved it. Realizing that Erica had broken the rules they had established, Eliza intended to kill her. But the spider woman was faster. She released a web that enveloped her opponent's body. Eliza severed her own arm to free herself in any way. Immediately after that, she lunged at her opponent. In the next moment, Eliza severed one of Erica's legs. The girl demanded that the spider woman return her boyfriend. Neither of them wanted to back down from their position, which led to them clashing in a fierce duel. Meanwhile, Lewis learned that there were 5 minutes left until the end of the trial, and he enjoyed watching both girls. Suddenly, Diana called out to him. He turned towards her, saying that he had been waiting for her. The girl was unhappy. She had been waiting for him at the agreed place, but he never came, spending time with others. The giantess came to the conclusion that he had been lying to her all this time. The hero was about to refute the girl's thoughts, but in the next moment, he saw his hand detach from his body, feeling terrible pain. He collapsed to the ground, leaning against a rock. Diana knelt down in front of the wounded boy, saying that he reminded her of someone from her past. She stated that in those times, she was not yet a resident of this world, but worked as a butcher. Because she was ugly and overweight, no one paid her any attention. One day, she met a man who admired her greatly and said many kind words. For the first time, she felt that someone cared about her. Sometime later, a man handed her a folder with important documents, asking her to keep it, even knowing that it was contraband. Diana accepted the folder. After her, bandits pursued her, intending to obtain these documents, and the girl tried her best to hide from them. She found herself near a half-empty establishment, noticing her beloved there. Diana heard him telling his friends that she was like a little dog, willing to go to the ends of the earth for him, fulfilling any of his whims, as long as they ignored her pitiful appearance. The girl said that on that day she chopped the man into many small pieces. What Lewis said during their first meeting was very similar to his words. Therefore, she will do the same to the hero as she did to her ex. Lewis managed to activate the suggestion because, fortunately for him, Diana grabbed his severed hand. When he asked if the giantess remembered her name, she did not understand why he was asking. He explained that while she was participating in the show all this time, her real name was never used. The hero said that it was all because neither in this show nor that person was truly interested in getting to know her. She was merely a tool in their hands. When Diana asked what she should do, Lewis replied that the girl should kill. He made her think about who constantly uses her to create content, who makes her perform like a clown, who has hidden her real name. She must kill them all. After the boy's words, the giantess lunged at the girls, intending to kill each of them. Thus, all three rivals tried to kill each other, and the system reported that there were 30 seconds left until the end. Taking advantage of the fact that no one was paying attention to him, Lewis collected the spider woman's paw, the severed arm of the monster girl, and the weapon known as the savage gutting tool. Suddenly, Eliza was distracted from the fight. She was curious about what the guy was doing. When the hero noticed that all eyes were on him, he bowed and said that he was pleased to meet them. Immediately after that, the system reported that the program was finished and his task was successfully completed. Edison was shocked that, for the first time in his show, someone managed to escape alive while all three guests lost. The crowd was outraged. Many demanded their money back. They wanted to see someone's death. The host ignored the crowd's shouts, stating that this show would be recorded in the archives and could lead to a decrease in the participants' ratings. In the next moment, the giantess appeared before him. She said that now his show was needed by no one. Edison stood up, saying that his guests had a couple of remarks about today's program. He asked if they really wanted to escalate the conflict right on stage. This could damage their reputation. A sudden voice drew the attention of everyone in the hall. The host bowed, curious about why the girl had come to them. Before everyone stood the fourth guest of today's show, Miss Len. The girl stated that she was giving them 10 seconds. She hates the crowd. Edison couldn't understand if she was serious. Seeing that her words had no effect, the girl began a countdown. Everyone started to panic and run away, fearing that if they didn't leave in time, the girl would kill them. After a while, only 4 remained in the hall. Then Len approached the host and asked for all the information about Lewis. When Edison said that he only had a paper level and was not worth her attention, the girl made a dissatisfied face, repeating her request. After that, the man hurriedly provided all the information he had. Laziness was satisfied with what she saw. Hiding the paper in her pocket, she stated that they could continue their disputes without her involvement. After these words, the girl also suddenly disappeared, just as she had appeared. Eliza was surprised that Laziness was seriously interested in that guy. Meanwhile, Charlie was cleaning in the City of Hatred. He cursed the guy who got him caught. Suddenly, on the main gates where all completed tasks were displayed, a new completed task of a hard level appeared in the first line. Charlie was greatly surprised that someone was able to pass a trial of such a level. Lewis was teleported to the City of Hatred, after which the system reported that his level had been raised to 3, and he could return to his world at any moment, or the hero could explore this world for an hour. The guy chose to explore the world, and when all the system windows disappeared, he noticed that his severed hand had returned to its place. He began to look around, noting that this place was not much different from the safe zone he had entered at the very beginning. Lewis decided to check his reward for the task by calling up his inventory. He was intrigued by the purple chest. A window of the demonic proximity skill appeared before him. It allows one to enter a state of demonization by attracting evil. The duration of the action is equal to the spiritual strength multiplied by seconds. After reading all the details, he concluded that the skill could be life-threatening. However, despite this, the hero decided to study it. After that, he decided to study the weapon he had acquired during the trial. A window appeared before him with the characteristics of the ferocious gutting tool. It is capable of enhancing its own attack power by absorbing the souls of the slain. The defense of opponents is reduced to almost 0. Lewis was astonished by how powerful this weapon was. A moment later, he summoned it. As soon as the giant scissors were in his hand, his health points began to drop continuously. He noted that it was quite convenient and light, but if he wanted to use it, he would need a lot of medicine for recovery. The suddenly approaching monster called out to the guy, and he was glad that he would have a new toy. Only upon finding itself in dangerous proximity to the hero did the monster notice the horrifying aura of death that surrounded him. When the guy took a step towards him, thousands of dead souls followed behind. It was a terrifying sight. The monster ran away, saving its life. Lewis guessed that the fierce gutting creature had scared it so much that he decided to retract his weapon. A moment later, he was called by Charlie. The hero recognized the merchant he had met earlier. He immediately approached the one responsible for his confinement here. Lewis apologized to the guy, saying that it was his first game and he was a newcomer here. Charlie looked at him with undisguised suspicion, asking how a newcomer could become the most wanted criminal in the safe zone. The guy replied that he himself did not know the reason. He had just finished the novice trial and asked an acquaintance to tell him about this world. Charlie said that he would do him a favor and tell him everything he knew. This world consists of several safe zones and 4 districts: paper, parallel, strong, and hard. A safe zone is a place that is carefully guarded by the system. Even if one dies there, they will not lose their items and can continue to exist. The paper level area is a low-risk zone, which is also protected by a system. There are low-level monsters that allow them to pass the trials. The area of the parallel level is a zone that is partially controlled by the system. It is inhabited by very strong monsters, and high-level equipment can also be obtained there. But dying there, he will lose all his items. The high-level area has low defense. Monsters of a fierce level appear there. Only the best players can complete challenges there. If he dies there, he will lose not only his items but also all character levels. Charlie warned the guy to only take on tasks in areas that he could handle. Lewis asked about the hard-level area. The merchant replied that no one had been able to pass it until today. This is an area that is completely uncontrolled by the system. Legendary purple-class weapons are produced there, but because it is located in a forbidden zone, it is impossible to access this location through a portal. Afterward, Charlie said that they are currently in a high-level area, and they need to complete a mission to reduce their hate score in order to return to a safe zone. He asked what Lewis' hate point score was. If he is a newcomer, he will be able to return quite quickly. Opening his stats, the hero tried not to reveal his surprise. He had an infinite hate score. Sometime later, they were walking through the city. Charlie explained that cunning and deceit are held in high regard here. Those who ended up here for trivial reasons are considered lower beings. Suddenly, they stumbled upon a monster that was trying to drag a boy somewhere. A moment later, the monster pierced its victim with its claws. He said that when passing by, one must definitely stop in and buy something. Charlie said that the local inhabitants do not like people, and that one must behave very carefully to avoid attracting their attention. But our hero was already standing in front of the shop gates. The merchant looked at his partner as if he were crazy. He told him to get out of there as quickly as possible. Ignoring all the advice, Lewis entered the building. Once inside, he approached the counter, saying that he wanted to buy a healing potion. The seller said that for such a special guest, the price is 500 points per bottle. The hero looked at the price tag and said that it indicated a completely different price of 50 points. The monster approached the guy, saying that for humans it costs 10 times more. After his words, Lewis stepped back from the counter, and the seller, laughing, said that it was already too late to leave. The hero turned at his words and asked why the seller thought he was about to leave. The monster felt a threat from the guy and stepped back a few paces. In the next moment, Lewis attacked him with scissors. The lower half of the seller's body was severed. Only the head and arms of the monster remained hanging in the air. The hero, surrounded by an aura of evil breath, began to approach him, intending to destroy him once and for all. The monster pressed itself against the wall, begging the guy not to come closer. He said that he is the owner of this shop, and if he is killed, the mayor of the city will not let it go so easily. The hero trapped the man in his scissors. After that, he said he would spare him if he sold him all his items at a 10% discount. The monster, crying from fear, agreed to the guy's terms. A few minutes later, Lewis emerged from the shop cloaked in a dark hooded cape. He was pleased that he managed to buy 20 healing potions and 20 spirit elixirs for a total of 200 points. He also managed to acquire a cloak that can conceal the breath of evil from high-level creatures. He is also able to hide the guy from monsters of a brutal level for 10 minutes. Lewis was liking this world more and more. As soon as Charlie noticed the guy who had come out, he ran up to him, examining his cloak. He couldn't understand how Lewis had managed to get it, as it was very expensive. The hero replied that the owner had given him a discount on this item. The merchant had a hard time believing his words. At this seller's shop, all goods are 10 times more expensive than usual. It's hard to imagine him giving anyone a discount, especially on such an item. The guy looked at Lewis standing in front of him once more and concluded that he would not let Lewis slip away, as he could become rich thanks to him. In the next moment, he offered the hero to become friends by activating his account. Lewis also activated his seal and brought the back of his hand with the seal to the boy's seal. After that, the system reported that Charlie had been added as a friend, and he could send him a message at any time. Immediately after that, the merchant disappeared. The hero looked at his hand, surprised that travelers could connect with each other in this way. A moment later, the system reported that his time in this world had expired. In the next second, he was once again standing in hospital clothes on the hospital roof. The guy was informed that the next trial would start in a day. Lewis turned on his phone and looked at the timer. In that world, he had spent 2 hours while only 12 minutes had passed here. Then he summoned a healing potion from his inventory. He was glad that he could use things from that world here. In the next moment, he drank a healing potion and hurried to leave the roof. Sometime later, he was walking down the street, noting that the shelter across the street was quite noisy today. Meanwhile, Charlie was handing out candies to the children from the shelter. He boasted that he had finally found a sponsor who would provide him with money for their maintenance. Suddenly, he noticed a guy passing by who seemed familiar to him. Lewis approached the main entrance of the hospital, where he was met by 2 nurses asking where he had been all this time. He replied that he went out to get some fresh air, as he couldn't be cured by ordinary means, and he could only rely on fate. The hero approached his ward. Although he had drunk 5 bottles of potions, he was not sure that they would have any effect on his illness. Upon opening the door to the room, he was greatly surprised. On his bed lay a very beautiful girl with light hair. After he entered the room, she changed her position, turning onto her stomach and began playing on the game console. Lewis turned away from the stranger, thinking that his illness was progressing. He approached the nightstand for the pills. After pouring the necessary dose into his palm, he said that this was the most unreal hallucination since the onset of brain problem. The demoness, who cannot complete the very first level of a children's game, he drank the medicine, saying that she should disappear in a minute. The stranger shoved the console in his face, saying that if he was so confident in himself, he should complete it on his own. After that, she stared at him with a look of dissatisfaction on her face. The hero decided to touch the girl, marveling at how intensely his hallucinations were progressing. Laziness stood still, enduring the boy's touch. A moment later, she couldn't take it anymore and, summoning her weapon, said that if he didn't stop, she would kill him. Lewis asked not to be angry with him. He would complete the first level in the game for her. A few seconds later, the nurse knocked on the hero's room, asking if he was okay, as there had been a loud noise coming from there for some time. A few minutes later, the guy completed the first level of the game, defeating the character of the same name along with the girl. She was sitting on the table pondering that her representation in this world was worthless. Lewis said that in this game, she actually has quite a good character, much better than in the old version. He explained to her that people tend to imagine something terrible when mentioning the unknown, but not beauties like her. After that, he said that he was flattered that the fourth guest had visited him in this world. Laziness smiled bloodthirstily, saying that he truly deserved to be the survivor after awakening the source of evil. He was the first to survive with this ability. The hero could hardly believe that all the others had been killed while possessing such a power. The guest said that she came to remind him not to face the trials alone if he is not confident in himself. If he performs well, they will meet again. He asked her to tell him more about the source of evil, whether it was somehow related to his illness, and he was also curious if creatures from her world could come into this one. Laziness replied that she is a special case and no one else is capable of moving here. If he wants to know more about his ability, he must do his utmost to avoid dying. The next day, Lewis took on a new challenge in a strong-level multiplayer mode. When he stepped into the square where all the players had gathered, he was amazed by their number. The hero walked through the crowd, attracting curious glances. Some did not understand how he, having a third level, was able to get here. Suddenly a man appeared, who was the master of this task. After examining everyone, he pointed at Lewis. As he approached, he asked what was happening with his level. Jack asked how, with his abilities, he ended up here. He should be among the paper ones, but not here at all. Receiving the response that the guy was just lucky, the man decided not to get involved and simply told him not to get in the way. Suddenly, a bullet pierced his head. The system announced the death of Jack. An old man who appeared greeted everyone and said that he needed to deal with the employee who had violated the tardiness law. Everyone present here was in shock at what was happening. Lopez said that they shouldn't be so surprised if they had seen the manual. They should know that employees cannot rebel against their director, which is what they currently are. The hero concluded that in this trial, the director could kill an employee with one blow for any violation of the rules. Meanwhile, Lopez continued. He said that there are 3 orders in their directories. The first is a simple blue one, while the other 2 are more complex and red. He then mentioned that their work is quite simple. We need to complete these 3 orders, and then we can get out of here alive. After his words, the system announced the activation of the main quest, to escape this place alive. One of the brave souls tore off a sheet with the red task, saying that it shouldn't be something impossible. After that, the system reported that the delivery contained a slap in the face, and the recipient, the boss of the high-level Hellwolf, immediately stated that he refused this task. After his words, Lopez shot him in the head, saying that according to the 5th article of the handbook, they are not allowed to refuse the assignment. He reminded them not to forget the rules. Another brave soul decided to test his luck by pulling out a blue slip. He needed to deliver dinner to room 306 of the rotating skyscraper. Delighted by such an easy task, he rushed to the customer. Everyone in the room merely exchanged silent glances with each other. Lewis said that the assignment stated to deliver 3 orders, and once an order is received it cannot be refused, so nothing prevents him from intercepting someone else's. He was starting to be surrounded by players with self-satisfied smiles on their faces. One of the players said that he had only 1 red order that he could exchange with him. Lewis asked if the guy really wanted to exchange with him. In the last meeting with Lenya, the hero asked if he could undergo trials below the cruel level due to his ability. The girl replied that he would be able to, but at the same time the difficulty of the trials for others might be increased. If the trial had a parallel level, then due to his interference it will change to a strong one. The hero said that he was not opposed to exchanging something for fun. In the next moment, he opened his directory, showing the red sheets, and when he flipped them over, everyone saw another red task. The crowd was in shock. They did not understand why he had no blue task. After that, the guy asked if anyone wanted to exchange deliveries with him. At that moment, everyone started to disperse, telling him to keep his distance from them. When everyone left Lopez's room, he told the young man that it was the first time he had seen someone with 3 red orders. But unfortunately, with his level, it would only be a waste of time. Luis asked the man if he wanted to have some fun watching him complete these tasks. He was flattered by such an offer. The director said that he would not give any concessions, but since the young man wanted it so much, he could ask him any question. After his words, the hero stated that the man's actions led him to think that he was intentionally making everyone refuse the red orders and only take the simple blue ones. He then suggested that the reward for the red task, which he pays to the performer, is very large, which is completely unprofitable for the man. Lopez listened to the young man with interest. Lewis said that if his guess was correct, successfully completing the 3 red deliveries would be a serious blow to the man's finances. The director confirmed the young man's guess and then asked if he had any questions left. The hero turned towards the exit, reminding that it was only about one issue. He was not eager to get acquainted with Lopez's revolver. When the guy disappeared behind the door, the man remarked that he expected nothing else from a traveler who had experienced something like that. He was curious to see all of his potential. When Lewis exited the hall, he was blinded by a bright light that suddenly appeared in the dark room. A man with a glowing head approached him. He said that he had 3 blue tasks and offered to exchange. John said that with such a level, the guy wouldn't be able to complete 3 red tasks. If he hands this matter over to him, he will still have a chance for survival. Noticing Lewis's scrutinizing gaze, the man said that if he had any objections, he could challenge him. The hero remembered him. Charlie had mentioned that he had passed a strong level trial. When John saw that the guy took out his directory, he didn't hide his smile, saying that it was a sensible choice. But in the next moment, the guy tore off one of the sheets, activating the task. He walked past the man, saying that his hand had accidentally twitched. John's actions angered the young man, and he decided to attack him from behind. But Lewis drew his weapon before the man could reach him. John froze in shock, fully aware of the power of the purple level weapon. A few seconds later, the man stepped away from the guy, saying that he was far from weak and would definitely handle these tasks, after which the hero said goodbye to him and headed off to make the delivery. Sometime later, Lewis was already standing at the house where the boss lived, to whom he needed to deliver the doll. He rang the intercom and said that he had a delivery for the mad lady. The hero listened, hoping to hear something in response. Suddenly, a deafening scream came from the intercom. After waiting a few minutes, he reported again that the courier had arrived. At first, there was a strange hissing sound, and the guy managed to make out the phrase, "Come in yourself through it." Lewis said that the gates were locked, and he would not be able to enter, but in response, there was another hiss. The guy realized that he had no way out, and he summoned his weapon. After that, without hesitation, he chopped through the massive gates. A few seconds later, he found himself at the entrance door, opening it. When he stepped inside, he was struck by what he saw. The spacious room was cluttered with trash, and in the center, on the couch, sat a girl in front of a monitor. The hero broke the silence by saying that he had delivered her order. The girl turned her head towards him, gesturing for him to speak more quietly, as her pet had just fallen asleep. He apologized and whispered, asking if she would accept the delivery. The girl approached him, asking if the doll was her Sonia. Then she looked at her pet, saying that Sonia was already in her hands. Lewis understood that the girl was not herself, and began to carefully back away toward the exit. Suddenly, the girl threw the doll, calling the guy a liar. She became furious and lunged at the delivery man, saying that he wanted to steal her child. The hero ran away from her, swallowing restorative potions along the way. The client was determined to kill him. As soon as the guy saw the door, he rushed into the room without hesitation. He locked her in with a latch to secure himself a temporary refuge. After that, he looked around the room he found himself in. It was strikingly different from the other rooms in the house. On one of the walls, he noticed a drawing and approached to take a closer look. Looking down at the table, he noticed a calendar marked with the days since the disappearance of this woman's daughter. The hero felt pity for her, as she had been searching for her child for so long. He was flipping through the calendar when a business card fell out of it. It stated that by paying a sufficient price, they would deliver anything. After reading the inscription, the guy thought that the director had gone too far in his lies. In the next moment, a knife sliced through the door. The guy looked around the room in an attempt to come up with a plan of action. Suddenly, he noticed a wardrobe. Upon opening it, Lewis had a brilliant idea. A few minutes later, the woman broke down the door. After that, she finally managed to get inside. Her rage subsided at what she saw. The hero changed into her daughter's clothes, fully immersing himself in this role. The woman slowly approached her daughter, whom she saw before her, asking when her girl had grown up so much. A moment later, she hugged the guy, whose plan had succeeded, saying that it didn't matter how much she had changed. The main thing was that she was alive. After these words, the hero recoiled from the woman's body, saying that she was wrong. And in the next moment, he plunged the knife into his stomach. Watching this scene, the mother was flooded with fragments of memories. Her little daughter was playing in the garden with a doll. While the little girl was engrossed in drawing, an unknown man approached her. She turned around to see who it was. A few seconds later, the doll was stained with blood. The woman came for her daughter when it was time for dinner, but instead of her, she saw only a pool of blood. In search of her daughter, she came across a store that would deliver anything their customer wished. The woman asked the man if he had seen the girl in the photograph. Her heart stopped for a couple of moments when she was told that he had seen her. The hopeful mother asked where he had seen her. Lopez said that he would be happy to tell, but his company's services are not free. She will have to pay a considerable price. She fell to her knees, saying that she would do anything to get her daughter back. After her words, the man said that she must give up her sanity, and soon her daughter would return. Moments later, he consumed the mind of the poor woman, saying that she would become their regular client. Lewis used suggestion on her to awaken her from her madness, and now he was watching her try to resist him. She was delirious, begging not to be awakened from her sleep. Realizing that this would take a long time, the guy moved toward the exit of the room. Instead of our hero, the woman saw her little daughter. But in the next moment, her reality shattered into pieces, and a guy with a doll in his hand stood before her. He congratulated her on managing to regain most of her sanity. She felt as if she had woken up from a long sleep. Lewis sat down next to the woman handing her the doll. He said that it was sent by his boss. She had to figure out for herself what this package meant. He said that there are still many things in the world she can do besides deceiving herself and depending on others. When the system reported that he had completed the order and had been promoted to an excellent worker, he stood up and said it was time for him to return. When he reached the door, he was called out. The woman asked if her lost daughter, Sonia, was alive. He smiled and said that she should go see for herself and find out everything. When the guy left her house, she placed the doll on the bed, saying that she would definitely figure everything out. Meanwhile, Lopez held a broken figurine of a woman, saying that she had been a good client. After that, he set it aside and said it was time to start the second part of his play. He asked Sonia if she agreed with him. From behind the tightly locked door, a quiet voice was heard. Other players were not doing as well as Lewis. One by one, clients dealt harshly with them. Meanwhile, John was running through the forest, having obtained a red order. The system informed him that he needed to deliver love to the king of the crypt. Suddenly, he stopped, sensing someone's presence. Thinking that there might be an ambush, he hid in the bushes, intending to find out where the danger was coming from. To his surprise, John saw only Lewis changing clothes. The hero heard a noise from the bushes and turned around. In the next moment, he smiled and waved to his new acquaintance, telling him to come out of hiding. The man was very surprised when he noticed a sign above the boy's head that read, "Excellent worker." Lewis recounted that he met an obsessed client in women's clothing who wanted to look better than him, but the guy emerged victorious. When John asked if he had any more such orders, the hero handed him a removed dress, asking if he wanted to try it on too, but he refused, understanding the absurdity of the idea. The man cast a careful glance at the boy, concluding that he had simply incredible abilities. If we also consider his weapon, he could very well be someone who has passed the trials of a hard level. A couple of moments later, he proposed to Lewis that they collaborate, as they could help each other complete the red tasks. He explained that monsters can leave bad reviews, and they will track couriers intending to get rid of them. If they work together, it will be much easier to deal with the bloodthirsty monsters. To prove the sincerity of his intentions, John handed his order to the hero so that he could review its contents. Noticing the surprise on Lewis's face as he read the order sheet, the man asked what had caused such a reaction from the guy. The hero returned John's task and materialized his red order. A moment later, the man realized that they had the same client, but the guy needed to deliver light, not love. He said that in that case, they should stick together. In the next moment, strange sounds were heard from behind. A monster, hunting for couriers, emerged into the clearing where they were. The guys managed to hide among the bushes. John told his partner to head to the mission site while he dealt with the monster. But Lewis took out his cloak, telling the man to follow him, and perhaps they could bypass the monster without taking any damage. John activated his ability watching the opponent. He said that if the guy is not confident in his abilities, he can safely leave while he deals with the monster himself. But the hero assured him that everything was fine and they could set out. A moment later, the enemy discovered their hideout. The monster saw someone preparing to deal with its prey, raising giant scissors over the man. From the unknown, danger loomed. He noticed the unwelcome guest, rejoicing that another fool would become his victim. The monster said that it was just passing by and started to back away. Lewis was amused by its words and began to slowly approach the trembling eye monster. A couple of moments later, the guy's opponent was already running as fast as possible away from that place. When the hero no longer felt the presence of others, he informed that his partner could get up. John was impressed by the guy's abilities. He said that having someone like him as an enemy was a very dangerous idea, so the man suggested they become friends. A few seconds later, they touched each other's tags, adding each other as friends. When they emerged from their hiding place, John explained that if the monster was not satisfied with the order in this trial, it would go insane and start hunting the traveler with the intent to kill. All the while, the man ran ahead, supposedly escaping from the monster's pursuit. At the same time, Lewis, who was pursuing him, scared away all the monsters in their path with his aura. Sometime later, they arrived at the location. The partners entered the territory of the crypt. Suddenly, John thought he heard a voice from above. The monster climbed down from the tree, asking how a human dared to enter the territory of the king of the crypt. After that, it jumped down. The monster with a bandaged eye said that he hates people. John said that he had come to deliver his order. After that, Vertilac reported that he wanted to get his eye back. The man did not understand what the monster meant. He explained that once he came to the surface to enjoy some delicious food, he encountered a terrible nomadic man who stole his eye. The king of the crypt was filled with hatred, but the robber had a terrifying monster bodyguard that he dared not attack. John did not understand how a monster could be a bodyguard for someone. Meanwhile, Lewis cleared his throat strangely, agreeing that it was hard to imagine. Meanwhile, the king of the crypt continued, saying that this is why he turned to the delivery service. They must either bring him the stolen eye or give up their own. Suddenly, a group of uninvited guests appeared behind John. Lewis, noticing the strange expression on his partner's face, asked who they were. In response, he heard that they were old acquaintances. The girl was flattered that the man had not forgotten her. After that, she moved towards the guys, asking if John could, out of old friendship, surrender himself without resistance, ensuring an easy execution of the order for the girl. The hero caught her attention by asking if he could quietly leave while they sorted things out, as he was just a novice. Amelia Mila, smiling, replied that if her target had an assistant, he was also ordered to be eliminated, especially since he didn't look much like a novice. The hero had no other choice. He said that he was also going to treat her as a novice. After that, he leaned against the werewolf, stating that only he could resolve this situation. The monster did not understand what was happening. A moment later, Lewis removed his hood and turned to the king of the crypt, asking if he would recognize him. He looked at the real guy in front of him with surprise. The werewolf recognized his tormentor and rage overwhelmed him. Amelia's companions laughed at the hero, saying that surrendering to the monster in such a way was pure suicide. The king of the crypt intended to attack him, but he was unsettled by the calmness of his victim in the face of death, so he stopped at the last moment. Lewis raised his head and, smiling dangerously, asked why he wasn't continuing. The monster feared that the woman was somewhere nearby, and if she saw that the boy was injured, he wouldn't be able to get away so easily. After considering all of this, the werewolf placed a paw on the hero's shoulder, saying that they are friends despite the past. The others were puzzled watching this scene. Meanwhile, Lewis took the opportunity and asked the monster to help him get rid of the unwanted guests. At his request, the werewolf hesitantly scratched his head, saying that there were too many of them. After his words, the hero pulled out the monster's eye, which the werewolf so desperately wanted to reclaim. The guy said that if he behaves well, he will get his eye back. But if the king of the crypt suddenly finds him unnecessary, the hero will tell his beloved that he really likes this trophy, and it would be nice to acquire another one to match it. The monster took the eye, saying that he would do anything. After that, the system reported the successful completion of the order. The hero was promoted to head of the HR department, and now he could resist the manager's will to a certain extent. Meanwhile, the king of the crypt lunged at the uninvited guests. He struck them with lightning speed. Amelia, seizing a suitable opportunity, decided to flee, wishing her companions good luck. Suddenly, John attacked her from behind. The girl managed to dodge the deadly strike. The man warned her not to dare disturb his partner in any way. She noticed that this guy was not indifferent to him, which further fueled her interest in Lewis. In the next moment, she used a decoy, leaving a straw doll in her place. At the same time, our hero was already far enough away from the crypt. He activated a new mission. He needed to bring laughter to the Hills subway station. All this time, Lopez, who had been lurking in the shadows, stated that everything in his play was starting to go off script. It was time for him to intervene in this drama as its screenwriter. He took control of his actors, who began to deviate from the plot. By managing them, he eliminated distractions one by one, after which he absorbed the levels of the slain players, saying that it was still too little. Meanwhile, the werewolf dealt with his opponents. He turned to John, saying that he would remember someone strong like him. Suddenly, the monster felt a terrible headache. The man asked what was happening to him. The king of the crypt said that he had been alone for a long time and had taken on several orders. If he did not get what he wanted, the manager would take care of it. John sat down next to the monster, saying that he had another order for him. The werewolf was surprised by this statement. In the next moment, the man sat on top of the monster lying on its back, telling it to trust him. After that, he kissed the king of the crypt. The monster cried with happiness. Lewis reached the nearest city, noticing that the monsters had become much more ferocious than they were before. Shifting his attention to the girl who had him pinned against the wall, he asked why she was pursuing him when her target was John. Amelia said that she does not know what kind of relationship connects them, but all the players who entered the top 100 have abandoned all moral principles. John is no exception. He will do anything for a promotion. Lewis asked why she was telling him all this. The girl leaned close to the guy's face, freezing in dangerous proximity, and said that she wanted to know what he was worth. Sometime later, Lewis was running away from Amelia with all his might. She asked why he suddenly ran away from her, saying she wasn't going to eat him. While jumping over an obstacle, he heard the girl say that her boss was looking for a guy who had passed a fierce level for a high reward. Outpacing him, she said that he was exactly the one she was looking for. He cannot hide from the girl with his current stats. Lewis asked why she didn't take him out immediately when she had the chance. Smiling, Amelia replied that she had a proposal for him. After that, she took out her weapon. Aiming at the guy, she activated the spell. The hero did not dodge, understanding that it was a binding weapon and that it would not cause much harm. A few moments later, he was pleasantly surprised when he realized that his skill levels had increased for a certain period. The girl explained that the trick of this dungeon is that as long as the player does not encounter the overseer, despite all the player's strength, they cannot defeat the boss. By coincidence, the overseer was Lewis. The hero understood her plan. After some time, the young man managed to open the huge doors with difficulty. Before him, he saw a creature that emitted an incomprehensible howl. Noticing the guest, it turned towards the entrance. After that, approaching the guy, it sat down in front of him and began to cry, shedding bloody tears. For some unknown reason, the guy was also shedding tears. He asked the monster sitting in front of him why it was crying. Not receiving any response, the hero sat across from his client, asking him to smile. Once again, there was no reaction. Lewis tried to smile himself, but he was only overwhelmed by sadness even more. A moment later, the monster climbed onto his back, saying that it was in great pain. He asked them to laugh together while the dark matter gradually consumed the hero. The monster infiltrated the boy's inner world and they found themselves in a hospital room. He realized that this person had endured a lot of pain. He wanted to see what fears haunted our hero. Lewis said that since he wants it so badly, he will allow someone else to see it. Sadness began to retreat in fear after the guy started showing him part of his memories. When Lewis unleashed all his painful moments from the past, hundreds of demons began to surround the monster. The hero was glad that finally someone would see and understand all his pain. For the monster, it was too unbearable, and it left the guy's consciousness fleeing away from him. Regaining his composure, Lewis asked him not to run away, as he had not finished yet. But the monster did not listen, moving closer to its refuge. Having found safety, he huddled in a corner. Shaking with fear, he faced a real monster for the first time. Moments later, Lewis kicked down the door, asking why the monster had run away from him. Lopez directed his play in the right direction. He said that few can smile in the face of crying, which brings out people's most painful memories, destroying the opponent. Suddenly, he froze. He could not understand why the cry was so frightened. The monster threw a doll lying next to the guy at him, telling him to leave. Lewis looked at the object that had been thrown at him. He remembered that he had delivered a similar doll to a woman who had lost a child. In the next moment, he knelt before the monster, asking if the name Sophia was his old name. The monster reacted to that name, saying it sounded familiar. In the next moment, he felt a terrible headache. The hero became worried about the monster, asking what was wrong with it. Suddenly, a green thread shot out from its back, attacking the guy. Lewis tried to deflect the attack with his weapon. After being knocked back a distance, he saw several more threads bursting from the monster's back. The guy managed to escape from that room, dodging the constant attacks. Having reached a safe distance, he stopped. He mentally thanked Amelia for enhancing his skills a little earlier. Suddenly, his weapon was entwined with numerous threads. The appearing Lopez said that he has been watching the guy for a long time, and he would prefer to keep such dangerous weapons to himself. Taking a few steps forward, he apologized for his tears, explaining that being close to the crying had also subjected him to that ability. In the next moment, Lewis was surrounded by a dozen puppets. Trying to hold back his tears, the guy said that he was very touched that the director himself had come down to oversee the process. At Lopez's instruction, the puppets brought a chair for his outstanding employee. When they both sat down, the director asked the hero what the most important thing in running a business is. Without waiting for an answer, he answered himself that it is demand. Only with demand can one achieve success, but to strengthen it, one must ensure that the services are in demand. The child is one that he raised to help him reveal the fears of his clients. Knowing this, he brings them to reality, maintaining a constant flow of clients. After that, he used the puppeteer's ability to bring the puppet to them, saying that if he killed the guy, Lopez would receive points to level up. When the monster got close enough, the man handed it his revolver, aiming it at the boy. Lewis defended himself from the shot with the console that Lenny had left him. He said that it was rude to kill his best worker like that without giving him the right to have the last word. After that, he activated the console. This artifact could summon a girl for assistance. Lopez was alerted by the whirlwind that had risen around them. All the puppets of the man were pushed back several meters from the hero. But a few moments later, the wind settled and no one appeared before the guy. Lopez breathed a sigh of relief. Immediately after that, the puppets lunged at the guy. When one of them almost reached its target, something happened that the man did not expect at all. A weapon belonging to Lenny appeared from thin air, protecting Lewis from the attack. The director realized that he would have to deal with the guy with his own hands. The cushion cut all the strings that Lopez had released. Having removed the obstacle, she dealt a crushing blow to the man. Suddenly, the guy's weapon was freed from its bindings. Lewis picked it up, noting that this cushion is truly a deadly weapon. Sometime later, the console disappeared. It was a one-time artifact. Now Lewis had to deal with Lopez on his own. I sat behind the chair, burying his face in his hands. Behind Lucha, bunches of green threads appeared in the air. Green threads rushed to attack the main character and he swung his scissors. He cut bundles of green threads with huge scissors. One of the bundles of green threads hit him in the face. The main character began to run away from the threads. Turning around, he asked if he was still alive. From the cocoon of green threads, the manager's voice was heard, who said that this was amazing, and the blow he used had the destructive power of a natural disaster. The manager, who was made up of green threads inside, said that his words were absolutely true, but he still didn't have one trump card in his hand. Green threads rushed in different directions. The threads enveloped the hungry walker and he screamed. There were many green threads peeking out from his mouth. Zhou Peng said that something in him was about to explode. She asked if it could be the work of a newbie. The bride screamed and ran to attack Menchio Huan. The threads grabbed her legs and she fell to the ground in front of him. Meng Chao Huan turned towards the green threads coming from the building. Weeping looked fearfully at the threads approaching him. The manager said he was worth every second of his time, even though it was all for short-term gain. Dragging Lament towards him, he said that he could have refused to increase the level of danger, but he could not restrain himself. The main character, cutting the threads, asked if it was worth it. The manager said that he had deprived his business of many years of profit, and he should thank him properly for that. Someone jumped into the room through the window, holding a knife in his hand. A creature appeared in front of the manager, looking like a human-shaped piece of flesh with sparse black hair tied up with green threads. Crying was right in front of the manager. The creature screamed loudly. It rushed to attack, swinging a knife. The manager said in slight amazement that the escaped puppet had returned. The creature approached between the green threads, screaming. It grabbed Weeping with its hand, taking him from the manager. It cut the bonds that bound him. The creature tossed Lament aside. Green threads pierced the creature's body. The main character turned his attention to Weeping, who had fallen to the floor. He asked if the lady was crazy. He said that she clearly would not last long and the order needed to be completed urgently. He cried, covering his face with his hands. Lucha called out to him and he turned around, sitting down next to him. He asked that he had always wanted to know what a smile looked like. Running his hand over the blade, he told him to watch the main character put the blade in his mouth. Cutting his cheek, crying, looked fearfully at the dripping blood. Lucha, cutting his cheeks in the shape of a smile, said that this was the smile he so passionately wanted to see. The dialogue boxes say, "Congratulations. You have completed your smile delivery order. Congratulations. You have completed an advanced order and become a Huangquan Express agent manager." The manager, wrapping the woman in threads, said that in the end, anger had completely taken over this sad puppet. Grabbing her by the neck, he told her that her recklessness meant nothing to him. With a wave of his hand, he threw it aside. The woman hit the wall with force, leaving a dent in it with his head down. The manager said that he was the manager of Huangquan Express. Straightening his hair, he said that as long as he was one, dealing with a creature of any cruelty would be a piece of cake. Closing his eyes, he said that his only goal was a new batch of clients. Opening his eyes, he said that he was truly incredible, and now it was time for the others to get what they deserved. Spreading his arms to the sides, he flared with red energy and said to show what they were capable of. He said with a crazy smile. On behalf of the manager of Huangquan Express, a red error dialog box appeared in front of him. At the moment 2 managers are registered with Huangquan Express, it is temporarily impossible to contact the client. Please make sure that only 1 manager is authorized. The manager exclaimed that this was impossible. He asked who could smile at him. The main character sitting on the throne apologized, calling him a colleague. Above his head is written acting store manager. Grinning, he asked if he might be interested in early retirement. Agent task manager. Store manager is the highest position, and from now on you can use store manager privileges. The reward for completing the final challenge has been increased by 400%. Since Huangquan Express currently has 2 managers, using the full package of privileges is temporarily impossible. Please make sure that only 1 manager is authorized. Turning to Lu Xia, the manager said that he had underestimated him after all. Striking forward with the threads, he said that he seemed to have forgotten that his level was insignificant in comparison. He said that by killing him, he would again become the sole manager. The main character sat calmly on the throne with huge scissors in his hands, smiling. He said that this was indeed true. A hungry walker fell through the ceiling into the room, and Lu Xia said that this should be agreed with the client. The hungry walker fell to the floor with force, crushing the green threads. The manager said with a grin that this level was not enough. A magic circle appeared next to the hungry walker's head, and an orange beam shot at his head. Level 3 technique, Berserk. The veins on the hungry walker's body bulged and he clenched his teeth. The threads of his figurine broke and the manager exclaimed in amazement. The hungry walker clutched the bundle of green threads in his hands. He pulled the bundle of threads, forcefully pulling the strings towards himself. He pulled the manager towards him. He hit the manager hard in the face with his hand. The manager flew aside. A huge orange beam flew through the building. Zhu Peng said, "It's not bad for a beginner." She suggested making friends. Lu Jia said that sounds good. The manager coughed and said someone like him is resisting him. The bride grabbed him with her hands from behind. She said everything was fine before he showed up. The manager exclaimed that she dared to resist him without letting go. The bride said that it was for him. Menzio Hughan approached him with long, heavy steps. The main character asked that his real name is Menzio Huan. Zhu Peng said that his forbidden move will definitely have an effect, and in terms of strength, this move is the most effective. Putting on her dark glasses, she told him to remember to close his eyes. Menzio Wan put his hands on the manager's shoulders, and he asked fearfully what he was going to do. Menzio Wan said with a smile that he has a special ability, strengthening any muscle in the body, and accordingly, the more powerful the muscle, the more destructive its effect. Smiling widely, he told him to guess which human muscle is the strongest. The manager gritted his teeth in shock, guessing what he was talking about. Menzio Wan activated a special skill, a magic language. Licking his lips, he said that he had never met a single guy who could stand it. Muscle Technique 3. Your love for muscles has gone beyond the average person. The strength of a random muscle in your body has been greatly improved and has become your special weapon. The strength of this muscle will continue to increase your strengthened muscle. Tongue. Your tongue is now a full-fledged weapon, dealing physical damage equal to 100% of your power. With each lick +1 to tongue length, damage will be increased by 50% +2. Each movement of the tongue reduces the opponent's speed by 10% maximum use 3 times +3. Penetration increases by 50%, and every third lick adds a paralyzing effect that lasts 2 seconds. The bride, blushing, said that his tongue was truly incredible. The manager asked me to wait in fear. Then Xiao Huan gave him numerous attacks with his tongue. Zhu Peng said that nothing less could be expected from a high-ranking player, and it's just terrible. The main character stuck out his tongue in disgust. Man. Xiao Huan continued to give the manager dance like tongue attacks. The main character, turning a blind eye to this, said that this scene frightens him too much. Zhu Peng said that although it looks quite stupid, every move he makes is a series of 7 deadly cuts. Lu Xia asked what 7 cuts are. She said that it is a technique that can knock out up to 70% of an opponent's HP, and is often used as a finishing move. She said that activating it is far from easy, but once he does it, it is impossible to dodge it because the damage is simply terrifying. Zhu Peng said that what he is using now is a final move that can only be used once. Menzio Wan lifted the manager by the hair and, sticking out his tongue, announced the final blow. He hit him with his tongue and the manager fell. Zhu Peng, covering her face with her hands, said that even considering that she can't stand elders, she definitely wouldn't want to become this guy's enemy because if it comes to this trick, she'll be finished. The main task of Huangquan Express is completed in a few minutes. They will be returned to the testing site. Zhu Peng smiled and said that it was done. She told Lu Jia to be friends with her, and it was better not to mess with guys like that in the future. They touched the marks on their hands and she thought that compared to him, the newcomer was still very much nothing. Zhu Peng asked him what was on his face. Raising her head up, the main character said that he wanted to bring a happy smile to the child. Zhu Peng looked at him blankly. The woman was lying on the floor under the bench she had left in the wall. Weeping, approached her and told her to get up. Taking her by the shoulder, he asked who she was and why she saved him. He asked if she knew his mother and if she could tell her where she was. The woman moved her hand. She put her hand on his face, smiling. She said that she had grown up and that was great. Weeping looked at her in amazement. The woman closed her eyes and began to cry. Xiao Xiao ran through the evening field of flowers. Her mother said with a smile that she had finally returned home. Xiao Xiao began to happily run towards her mother. They were joyfully reunited. The woman hugged her child and said that she had finally found him. Tears were streaming down Zhu Peng's face from under his dark glasses. Taking off her glasses, she said that she was very touched. She asked if deep down she was a sentimental person. Then Seo Hyun told her not to dig a hole for herself because people who are close to him should not cry. Placing her hand on her chest, Zhu Peng asked who would have thought that she also had a feeling. She said that, however, the newcomer was unexpectedly strong. She suggested fighting locally next time. The system informed them that they would leave the test in 5 minutes. Meng Zhou Huiwen suggested going and meeting in the main city. He thought that he should ask him about everything when they get out of here. The system has started counting down. The main character waved his hand and said goodbye with a smile. Zhou Pang and Minxiu hung around. The main character disappeared, dissolving into pixels. Exhaling, he said that they had finally left. He told the manager that he had already left so he could stop pretending. The hungry walker exclaimed in amazement. The woman turned around and asked in amazement that he was still alive. The manager asked why he shouldn't leave since his mission was accomplished. Lu Zhao said that he does not participate in this sad game to undergo some vile tests, and he is looking for at least some meaning in life. Smiling, he said that it so happened that he knew that there was someone else hiding behind the scenes, so he didn't want to detain them. The dialogue boxes say launch secret challenge the truth about Huangquan Express. Dear acting store manager, congratulations on completing your core mission and becoming the new Huangquan Express store manager. Now you can enjoy special privileges. You can refuse the position, reveal the real truth about Huangquan Express. Please note that after accepting a secret mission, the rewards change. Please choose carefully. You have decided to accept the mission. You will not leave the training ground in 60s. The manager said that it was really very different from the others. The doll lying on the throne apologized and asked to be allowed to ask why. The main character turned around and asked if he really knew him well. Rising from the throne, the doll said that he was too vain to die. Looking at him, it said that he believed that he had many trump cards up his sleeve, but this was not so because it knew him well. It said that in order to activate the ability to charm an enemy, he needs to come into physical contact with him. Lujia looked at his palm and said that it was true. The doll said that he also has a weapon that can harm the ferocious creatures, but to do this, they must attack first. The main character nodded again. The doll said that most importantly, he can pass ferocious level trials, which speaks volumes about his strength, and it has been following him since the beginning of the trial. Lugia smiled, apologized, and said that his tastes are varied, but a puppet is too much. The doll pointed an angry finger at him, grinning. It said that his boneless tongue deprives him of his composure, and this is his standard technique. The hand suddenly pierced the puppet's head. The bride told the doll to stop talking. The main character stopped her and said that this was not a real body. The bride exclaimed in amazement. Lugia said that like the manager whose corpse lies nearby and most likely he is also just a puppet. The other puppet's eyes lit up and it said that he was really smart, and it was no surprise that he was able to become the new store manager. Lugia said that he thought that this was the main body because clues had already surfaced before. Looking at the yellow card, he said that he keeps changing the needs of customers and in the end, greed will be his undoing. He said that he is the will of the customer trying to increase demand and is ready to do anything for this. The puppets began to rise to their feet one by one. The hungry walker, rushing to attack the puppets, shouted that he would trample him. Finding that the puppet had grabbed his leg, he turned around in amazement, grabbing the knife in her hand. The woman asked if the puppets were really getting stronger. The puppets rushed to attack, and one of them told the main character that regardless of what kind of creature it is, its needs are like instincts. The bride smashed the puppet's head with a punch. The puppet said that in normal times they restrain themselves with the help of morality, law, and other boring things, and he simply released their needs. But he is different. The hungry walker tore the head of one of the puppets with his hands. The puppet said that he is quite desperate and reckless and nothing can hold him back, so he is an ideal candidate for the role of the new manager. The woman cut the puppet in half with a knife, wrapping his arms around Lucha with green threads. The puppet said that he felt that he had an evil destiny so powerful that even he felt uneasy. He asked if he wanted to collaborate. The main character asked so that I can become your puppet like your predecessor. The puppet said that he is a time traveler who cannot use the power of his evil essence, but if he gives him his body, they will have no equal in the whole world. Turning around, Lucha asked with a smile, who said that he did not know how to use his evil essence. Lightning flashed over the city. The guys ran away from the digger calling for help. The guy with the sword asked how long they had to run away. The other guy said that he didn't know because the order had not been completed yet, but the manager had not arrived yet. He turned around slowly, seeing the silhouette of a man in the sky. He asked in shock what it was. White hair fluttered in the wind. He was dressed in black clothes. The main character turned into a blue man with black horns and pointy ears. In his hand were huge scissors. The puppet exclaimed that he was a traveler and could not use this power because he was not from this world. Lucha swung his huge scissors upward. Swinging the scissors, he calmly squinted. A huge purple beam of energy broke through the clouds and hit the ground. Somewhere in the hateful world, Laziness was sleeping on the bed on a pillow with morning stars. Suddenly, she frowned with displeasure. When she woke up, she asked if it was an insane level aura. The dialogue box says strong level. Joaquin Express order pickup point. Among the city buildings, there was a giant crater. The woman among the stone rubble was covering Xiao Xiao. She called out to her with a sad look. Holding her in her hands, she asked her to wake up. One of the stone fragments began to move, picking up a stone fragment. The hungry walker said that he was still alive. The bride, lying under the rubble, said she really thought she was going to die. Looking at the giant crater, she asked if it was really the guys doing the hungry. Walker said that he seemed to have left. Someone asked what they were talking about. They turned around abruptly, asking who it was. Sloth floated in the air, sitting on a pillow. She told them to take the trouble to explain what happened here and try not to leave out any details. Sometime later, while entering the blue portal, she said that it seemed like she was going to go to the human world, and Lugia decided to confuse her. The bride exhaled. The hungry walker said they were lucky to survive. The woman called out to Lena and she turned around. The woman ran up to her, holding a child in her arms, falling to her knees. She asked to be saved, hitting her head on the ground. She begged her, saying that she would pay any price. Laziness said that the basis of this child's existence is resentment and he feeds on it. Looking at the child lying on the ground, she said that now the source supporting this nutrition was no longer there, so he too would now disappear. The woman desperately fell to the ground. Leonie was silent for a while. She began to speak and the woman raised her head. A blue object appeared in her hands. Name: Green Lantern Quality Blue Artifact Effect. The lantern is able to absorb the power of the soul. The user can use it to absorb someone else's soul. Entering the portal, Sloth said that since she no longer wanted to use it for her own existence, all memories would be erased anyway. The portal disappeared, and she added that she must understand the cost of her sacrifice, and she needs to do everything on her own. The woman was sitting with a lantern in her hands. After crying, she smiled. A lantern shrouded in blue particles lay in the child's arms. The woman, having returned to her previous form, told Xiao Xiao that she would tell her a story. She said that a long time ago there lived a girl who was a real crybaby, and more than anything in the world, she loved to cry. After becoming transparent, she raised her head and said that one day she got a doll, and they became best friends, pressing her face to Xiao Xiao. She said that from then on, no matter what happened to her, she always told her doll about it. A drop fell on Xiao Xiao's face and the woman said that. Then the crybaby stopped crying and then she grew up. Xiao Xiao slowly opened her head. Rising up, she rubbed her eyes with her hands. Getting to her feet, she looked around and asked where she was. Seeing something, she stopped. Xiao Xiao exclaimed happily beneath the huge delivery point sign. A doll that looked like her mother lay on the ground. The main character appeared in a hospital room shrouded in blue pixels. Standing up, he asked what happened. He said that after killing the guy, he immediately received notification that the mission was complete. The dialogue boxes say, "Congratulations on completing the strong level dungeon. Huangquan Express main mission completed. Hidden mission completed. Overall rating, excellent. Warning, anomalous activity detected. Communication with the other world will be interrupted after 3 seconds." Lugia asked how he managed to pass out immediately after the transition and not even see the reward. There was a knock on his door. Suddenly, the sound turned into a deafening roar. The main character asked who could be banging on the door like that. Since he was in the hospital, 2 huge monsters entered his chamber. Lugia grimaced and asked if he was crazy. He said it was strange, and apparently the medicine he was taking had not yet worn off. Rising from the bed, he said since it was just an illusion, he would not react to it. The monster struck sharply with its long tongue. The main character frowned sharply. Crouching, he quickly dodged the attack, touching the wound on his cheek with his finger. He said that it hurt. He asked if the monsters were real. 2 nurses stood in front of him with worried expressions on their faces. Lucia looked at them and they asked what happened and if he was feeling bad. The nurse with blonde hair noticed that he was silent. Another nurse asked if he was crazy. Reaching out her hand to him, she asked if he was okay. The main character continues to see them as 2 monsters. Gritting his teeth, he asked if they were hallucinating and if he should kill them. The monsters began to approach him. Lucia jumped over them. In one deft leap, He ran into the hallway and the nurses called out to him. The nurse told another nurse to quickly report this to the duty room, and Lucia seemed to be feeling unwell again. The main character quickly turned the corner. He found a tentacled monster with a huge red eye filling the corridor in front of him. The tentacle pierced his leg. Lucia staggered and blood gushed out from his leg. Pressed against the wall, he said that the pain and sensations were very real and there was no way out. He opened his inventory and the system, asked if he should call for help from the ferocious Ripper. A hospital employee radioed that the patient had been found. The man on the radio asked what his condition was. The man said he got scared when he saw him slipped and fell. No serious injuries approaching Lu Jia. He asked him to calm down and said that he would take him to the treatment room. The main character suddenly began to run away and the man asked him to stop. Lu Jia jumped out of the window with a sharp jump. A child at the orphanage asked to flee, was leaving again the girl with blonde hair. How long will he last and can he not leave? Lee said with a smile that he was saying that he had found a place where he could make good money and he would become rich and come back right away. Squatting down, he patted the girl on the head and told them to behave and wait for him. A boy with a shaved head, pointing his finger to the side, told him that there was someone there. The main character approached them, having difficulty keeping his balance. The child asked him why he was in hospital pajamas and if he was sick. He asked why not go to the hospital. Lu Jazz turned black and he told them to die with an evil smile. Jean Dali, gritting his teeth, shouted to be careful. The main character sharply swung his huge scissors. He hit the stone steps with the scissors. Jin, Dali, and the children teleported a few meters away from him. Holding the scroll in his hands, he said that he had time. He told the children to run away immediately. Magic scroll, harmful teleportation quality. Green artifact effect. Using this artifact, you can forcibly teleport the target of your choice to any point within 30 m. The children ran away. Turning the corner, the girl turned around and asked, Jindali, what about him? He smiled and gave her a thumbs up and told her not to worry because he was very strong. The main character, surrounded by an ominous aura, was approaching him. Jindali, sweating nervously, said that he was finished. He looked at the huge scissors that the main character was swinging. He fell to his knees, putting his hands in front of him. He told him to stop because it was him. Jindali. Lugia told him to run, holding his face with his hand. He told him to run away because he couldn't help himself. Jindali shouted something back. The main character widened his eyes in amazement. He quickly swung the scissors, shooting out waves of dark energy. Jin Dali, running away, called for help. The children called out to him in fear. The wave of energy spread in two directions without touching him. Jindali covered his face with his hands from the strong wind. He opened one eye, noticing a horned silhouette in a cloud of dust. He asked if it was another monster. Sloth said that he not only withstood the effects of insane levels of power, but was also able to clear his mind for a second. She said that he was definitely not an ordinary person. She said she shouldn't have expected anything less from the guy she had plans for. Blue energy flashed at the tip of her finger, and she said with a smile that it was not in vain that she gave him the tracking demon. Pulses of cold energy spread around her. Suddenly, snow began to fall from the sky. The children looked up in amazement, noticing the snow. Suddenly they wanted to sleep. The children fell asleep right on the cold asphalt. The main character, down on one knee, asked Lenny if this was her doing. Lenny apologized and said that she did not want to set him up. She said with a smile that she never expected that he would actually be able to awaken his true power. Lucia's eyes darkened and he said that he was waiting for her. He asked her to explain what was happening. Lenya, smiling, said that she would tell everything. Raising her head, she said that he had caused quite a commotion. There was a huge magic circle above them, and she said that first we need to figure everything out. Looking at the sleeping children, Jean Dali said, incredible abilities. Looking at Lenya, he said, a high-ranking demoness from another world. Looking at the giant magic circle, he said, all these special effects look like someone's prank. Rolling his eyes, he laughed and said that it seemed like he was in another world. A man in black clothes with his hands clasped behind his back, standing behind him, apologized for disturbing him. Jean Dali turned around, but the man turned around, rubbing the back of his head. He asked how this man ended up here. The man approached Lenny and, bowing, said that the queen had decided to visit this world. He asked if he could find out why. Laziness said that the night guards, are very boring people and cast the same boring spells every time. The man coughed, apologized and said that according to the agreement, she could not appear in the human world without permission. Lanya, grinning evilly, asked what he should do since she was here. The man said he was joking. He asked if he, an ordinary demon, could be equal to the powers of Her Majesty. Frowning his brows, he said that if she really had come to invade the mortal world, he would fight. He said that even if she used this body, he would not be able to defeat her. Lenya turned around, frowned, and said that the night guards were real suicides. Pointing her finger down, she said that she was not interested in fighting with them and she was here because of this guy. The main character was lying on the ground unconscious. The night guard asked if she was joking since this traveler was still at the beginner level. He said that he would hardly be able to use artifacts from other worlds. He asked how he might be different from other recruits. Jindali asked if he was talking about him. Lenya, grinning, said that the fact that he never saw his essence was strange. The man approached Lucha questioningly. He placed 2 fingers on his forehead, which began to sparkle. The night guard exclaimed in amazement. He asked the others what they were doing. He shouted to them to come here immediately. People from the rooftops instantly disappeared. The blue barrier dissipated. One of the night guards said that it is a living source of evil. He asked how this was possible. Another night guard said it was something new and his eyelids trembled. Turning to Lenny, the night guard asked who he was. Sloth, twirling her hair with her finger, said that he managed to awaken the power of true evil in the battle and gained strength at an insane level, and this caused a lot of trouble. The night guards exclaimed in shock and said that she must be joking. The man asked if her words were true. Having created a large portal, Sloth said that if they do not believe her, she will take it away. She told them not to worry because she would not return to this world. Placing Lugia on their shoulders, the night guard said that he belonged to this world and she could not collect him so easily. Laziness raised an eyebrow in confusion. The night guard said that if she took him away, he would be very angry. Lenya smiled. She asked if he could hold it. She asked if they knew what would happen to the person who awakened the source of true evil. The night guard took the cloth covering his face, revealing his face. He said that people managed to give birth to a living source of true evil, and even if it costs them their lives, the night guards will definitely protect it. Laziness shrugged and said that she would leave it with them for now. A night guard breathed a sigh of relief, and she said that she had something to say with a wink. She said that they should hurry because open testing was about to begin. The night guard asked why so quickly. He said that people would hardly be able to cope with a brutal level of testing laziness, said Siming. The man looked at her in amazement. Lenya said that previously the night guards were in charge of Ursa Minor. She asked how many stars were left in it. She asked if all the stars went out, would there be any point in testing? The night guard, looking down, said he knows. He asked her to leave the human world. Laziness told him not to worry because she was already leaving. She brushed the hair from the protagonist's forehead with a smile. She kissed his forehead, which glowed slightly blue. The man, blushing slightly, asked what she was doing. Turning around, Sloth said that she would grant a strengthening that would protect his consciousness. She asked if there were any problems. The man coughed and said no. She disappeared through the portal. One of the night guards asked if this enhancement was transmitted through the mouth. The man told him to shut up and not talk about things he shouldn't talk about. Jindali, peeking around the corner, said that everything seemed to be fine. Gritting his teeth, he said that he thought that Lugia wanted to hit him, but did not expect that he was ready to kill him. He said he was wrong again, recalling how the main character cupped his face with his palm. He said that he didn't think it was done intentionally. Jindali said that he doesn't know what happened to him. Someone called out to him from behind, seeing one of the night guards. He cried out in fear, asking who he was. The night guard said that he didn't want to scare him and he could call him Ishuan. Smiling, he asked if he was also one of the travelers in that game, and if he wanted to become stronger. He said that he could help with this, but of course not for free. Jindali, covering his face with his hands, said that he was invisible. He asked him to pretend he didn't see him. Pointing 2 fingers at him, Ishuan said no. He asked if he had heard that testing was about to happen. He said he wouldn't last 3 rounds. Ishuan dragged him along the ground by his pants, ignoring his resistance. In a multi-story building, the lights were turned on in several windows. There were several wanted posters crossed out on the board. Zhou Peng sat on a chair with her leg up on the table, furrowing her brows. She asked if this guy was going to answer her messages. In the message, she asked why he was not in town since they had already left. She asked if he had decided to deceive her. Zhou Peng said that next time she would kill him for a good reward. Her phone rang. Picking up the phone, Zhou Peng asked Rogue. The interlocutor asked loudly how she talked to her uncle. Leaning towards the board, Zhou Peng asked if the night watch had broken up yet. She said that if he had no other questions, she would hang up. He said he had an urgent task for her. Zhou Peng said she was busy. The interlocutor said that the reward was huge. Twirling a marker in her hand, Zhou Peng said that she now realized that she could not help her beloved uncle, and she had to somehow express her love and respect to him. Sacred Heart Hospital. The boy woke up in bed. The man in the white coat asked if he was awake. Adjusting his glasses, he said that he was a doctor. He asked if he remembered that he had been here once before. The man closed his eyes and nodded, smiling. The doctor said that he was safe here. He left the room and someone through the system asked if there was a result. The doctor said no, and the other party has the ability to erase memories, so they are one step behind, but there is no need to worry. He asked to tell the elder that he would continue monitoring the source. Armies of angels and demons fought under red skies. Dragons flew in the sky while monsters fought with angels and people on the rocks. 2 angels in golden armor said that there were too many of them, and the devil must be killed. A devil with bluish skin and white hair sat on a stone throne. He raised his palm and it flashed. Red darkness surrounded him, getting to his feet. He said that he was the true source of evil. Colorful pillars of light rose into the sky, and he said that he had sent the 7 deadly sins to other worlds. Blue energy rushed upward from the rock behind him, and the devil said that he would grant them heavenly punishment. A beam of blue energy hit the ground and someone shouted for Lugia to wake up. Opening his eyes, the main character saw his palms stretched out to the cloudy sky. Rising to his feet, he looked at his palms. Looking up, he saw a huge magic circle and someone said that according to the order, a seal was being formed that would chain the demon people in black clothes floating in the air, shouted victim. The main character found himself sitting on a stone throne. Someone said that this is a fragment of the memories of those who once awakened within themselves, the source of true evil. Lugia asked. Laziness. Laziness said that she could not stay in a human body for a long time, so she left a part of her consciousness there in a spiritual form. And now, in each of his dreams, there will be memories of previous victims about certain events. The main character asked what the situation in the world was, pointing to the screen with Zhu Peng. She told him to look for himself. Seeing Lu Jia chained up, Zhu Peng asked if this was a joke. She asked the man if he was sure that he was not crazy and if he had dementia. Lowering his head, the man said that it was very disrespectful, but it didn't matter. He asked if she had heard that the source had awakened. Zhu Peng grinned and said that she had heard about it, but did not know that it was he who did it. She asked what happened to the blonde and who he was. Jean Dali, holding his head in his hands, thought, these seem to be quite close, and should they be familiar, he wondered if he should even get involved in this. Smiling widely, he grinned mockingly and asked if he hadn't introduced them. Pointing the gun at Lu Jia, Zhu Peng said that it was not important and she didn't remember him. She fired the pistol. The man moved so quickly that it didn't look like he was moving. Zhu Peng said, there is no need to poke your nose into other people's affairs. The man grinned and said that she could not kill him. He held the bullet she had just fired behind his back with 2 fingers biting his t-shirt. Jindali panicked and thought about who these people were. Zhou Peng asked with a poisonous smile if he had forgotten how her master died. The man said that Xi Lu and Xiangshen gave their lives in the fight against the previous awakened source of evil. Many years ago, after firing a bullet from his hand, he said that Yan Shou never recovered from the serious injuries he received back then. Zhou Peng, sitting on a chair, said that she was glad that he remembered. She told him to tell him why he wanted to protect him. Taking a bite of the apple, she said that the troops had been disbanded. There was discord between the elders, but they continued to worship the awakened source. Jean Dali asked to be allowed to speak. She turned in his direction, raising his palm. He asked about Lu Xia being different from the previous one. He asked why they should kill him. Zhou Peng said because Lu Xia awakened the source and 90% of those who awaken still die. She said that the source sauce absorbs the remaining 10% and the person loses his former essence, turning into a monster who is only capable of killing. Remembering the rampaging Lugia, Jindali understood why he was like this. The man with his hands clasped behind his back said that therefore, if anyone here decides that he is worthy of possessing the source, he must be killed immediately. He said that the root of all evil is the Lord of Evil, and it is like a curse that cannot be lifted or resisted. Nobody knows how and when it appeared. Who was the first damned? It is only known that those who awakened him will either die going crazy, or the curse will consume their soul, turning them into real monsters. Zhu Peng turned to Jean Dali and asked what he would do in her place. When faced with such evil, Jean Dali hesitated to answer. The main character said with a smile that this was nonsense. And of course you need to get rid of the problem right away like a weed, and then it won't grow. Lonya, looking at him, asked if he himself agreed with this. The man turned to Zhu Peng and said that she knows that humans by nature have a hard time competing with beings from other worlds. He said that for humans, the ferocious level is usually the limit. That's why before, when they faced them, they lost. However, the source of evil changed everything. The man remembered how he crawled on the ground. Gritting his teeth, he said that it first appeared when aliens invaded them from other worlds and they were on the verge of failure. He said that he not only completed the brutal level, but also turned the tide of the battle single-handedly. In the end, both sides decided that there was no point in resolving conflicts through clashes. Since then, The source of evil has been used to bring victory or defeat in decisive battles. Zhou Peng raised an eyebrow and said that the master never told her about this. She asked if it was true. The man said that at that time it was a big, unspoken secret that only a few people knew about. In addition, later, the consciousness of the source of evil was absorbed, which led to a great disaster, and he cannot even talk about it. Rubbing her chin, Zhou Peng said, "It turns out that everything is not so meaningless." The man asked what was not pointless. Zhou Peng said that she just thought that, with his usual way of talking nonsense, it would be something stupid again. Looking to the side, she said, "It turns out that back then there were still people capable of feats." The man angrily asked what she was saying. He said that in general, Lu Jia needs to be saved, even if he becomes a monster in the future, and they will deal with it later. Jean Dali said that there is really no need to worry too much. They looked in his direction, scratching the back of his head. He said that he had now heard so much that he no longer understood anything. Smiling awkwardly, he said that at least he definitely saw Lu Jia in a fit of madness. Remembering laziness, he said that if it were not for his kind soul, he would not have lived to see them appear. Smiling nervously, Jean Dali said that he thought that Lu Jia might not be absorbed. The man asked if he was saying that he was able to awaken from his state of insanity on his own. Jean Dali said yes. Frowning, the man said that this was impossible, and none of those who awakened the source of true evil were capable of such a thing. Jean Dali Jindal said effectively that they could ask Lenny about it because she saw it too. The man said that in any case they needed to wake him up as soon as possible. The ring on his finger flashed yellow. Something glowed yellow in Jean Dali's hands, and the man said it was for him. In his hands was a small piece of paper. Amulet of Fate, Substitution, Blue Artifact Effect. You can use this item to evade the test. Using it, you can officially refuse any task. Jean Dali exclaimed that this thing is really worthwhile. The man said that in his opinion, the only thing that could heal this guy was to constantly increase his spiritual power, and this would compensate for the negative energy. He said that if the owner of the source of evil decides to voluntarily take part in the game, it will be a brutal level and he should go with it to lower the difficulty, but he doesn't know if he can do it. Jean Dali exclaimed in fear. The man said, if he helps, this item will immediately belong to him. Jean Dali rubbed his shoulder hesitantly, and the man said that later they could take the test together. Jean Dali asked after he entered if she would protect him. The man said yes. Jean Dali asked if he could leave if he couldn't stand it anymore. The man, closing his eyes in irritation, said yes. Before he could finish speaking, Yixuan hit him on the back of the head. He said irritably that he had given him so many auxiliary artifacts that if he was killed, even with this, it would definitely be deserved. Jean Dali said that it was simply his first time entering a test of such difficulty, so he was nervous. The dialogue box says, "Please note that in tens you will enter the trial zone. Please get ready." Rubbing the back of his head, Jean Dali said that Yixuan gave him so much, but Zhou Peng has nothing at all. He asked where they found such a brave man who does not ask for anything in return. Zhou Peng's phone received a notification that 1 million yen had been credited to her account. The man adjusting his glasses said that he had transferred the reward to her. Jean Dali opened his mouth in shock. He asked why she was given so much money. And what about him? They disappeared from the room, leaving behind only fading blue pixels. Yixuan laughed and said that he was very young and energetic. The man asked that he must value them very much. Smiling, he said that he remembers how he himself wanted to look at the artifacts that he gave him, but he did not allow it. He soon chuckled and said that this fool would still die. But Zhou Peng should at least cope, throwing up his hands. He said that, as he once said, it would be sad if he left nothing behind when he died. The man said that this child is weak, and even if they start training right now, there is not enough time. Yixuan said that he are similar in some ways. Smiling widely, he said he was looking forward to seeing what he would grow into. The dialogue boxes say travelers. Lu Jia, Jean Dali, and Zhou Peng begin the competition and trial. Multiplayer mode. Difficulty. Hard level. Strong level. Challenge reward blue treasure chests. Please note that dying in this challenge will remove your level, skills, and items. Connection completed. Number of participants 4. Level. Cage of disaster. Loaded. Good game. Mission. Goal. Pet the cat, Jean Dali asked in amazement. Put the cat in front of him was a gigantic beast, like a lion baring its teeth. Growling, the monster waved its huge paws. Jean Dali began to run away and call for help. Pressed against the wall, he looked up in fear, pressing his back against the wall. He clenched his teeth and said that he was finished. He accidentally pressed the red button on the wall. Jean Dali looked at the button. The dialogue box says Object 57 Spirit Cat. Evil level 500, danger level medium, conditions of detention. The spirit cat must be locked in a cage alone and periodically calm down. To do this, the researcher needs to relax as much as possible and leave when the civet's condition becomes stable. Note subject 57 is a black obedient kitten, but exhibits symptoms of possession from time to time. If at this moment there is any intelligent creature within 10 meters, he corners them and tries to kill them. However, if the target handles the subject carefully like a pet, it will not be difficult to calm it down. Gritting his teeth, gingerly asked where Lu Jia and Zhu Peng were. Holding a gun in her hand, Zhu Peng asked, "Is the monster so strong from the start?" She said the challenge seemed happy to see her. Object 13 Red Fish Evil Level 48-0. Danger Level. Strong conditions. Closed cage of good quality food must be given daily at 8 and 20. In addition, there should be no arc-shaped objects nearby. Objects close to circles, cylinders, semicircles, and so on. Note Object 13 looks like a huge red fish monster has an almost fanatical desire to eat a meatball. As long as something is spherical and its size matches the size of the object's mouth, it will be absorbed regardless of the hardness of the material. The monster's eyes became bloodshot. Zhu Peng covered her chest with her hand and asked, displeasedly seriously. Opening its huge mouth, the fish rushed to attack. There was a small screen next to the iron door on the screen with Lu Zhao's photo. It was written, Object 1 Nameless Object Level of Evil. Unknown Preventive Measures Unknown. Note the subject appears to be a male human with relatively strong mental abilities and the ability to communicate. He damaged a total of 6 pieces of equipment, including the newest 99,999 evil limit detection detector. At present, a method for neutralizing it has not been discovered. On the screen was Lugia, who waved his hand at the camera and asked if anyone was there. Smiling, he said that he had finally woken up and offered to talk. Raising his head up, the main character asked that no one had come. Closing his eyes, he said that it seemed like the other party didn't want to talk to him, but someone must be watching. Completing the main task, escaping from the Disaster Association reward blue treasure chest. Lugia, noticing the name of the association, said that he had already heard about it somewhere. He remembered the manager saying that he didn't expect that what he used in preparation would be useful here, and Lugia did a great job. Smirking, he said that it seemed that even he was afraid of the association, but he shouldn't be underestimated either. The dialogue box says the system detected an abnormal output last time. Rewards will be taken into account. The reward will be calculated in full. Lucha exclaimed in amazement. The dialogue boxes say you have been promoted to a store manager. Using the duties, the reward has been increased by 400%. You have solved the truth about Huangquan Express. The reward has been increased by 200%. You have conquered Huangquan Express. The reward has been increased by 500%. Your final reward ratio is 12.0%. Final reward 2,000 points. Reward 1 purple treasure chest, 2 blue treasure chests. The reward for fixing the mess in the trial system is 3 health points. Due to the increase in level to level 5, your source of evil is strengthened to +1. All attributes are improved due to Huangquan Express going bankrupt. The title was obtained favorable. The system wished him a pleasant game. With a grin, the main character irritably asked if they were thinking of laughing at him with the last line. He demanded an apology. Frowning, he said that for the sake of generous rewards, he would turn a blind eye to it. His status window reads, Strength 2 Attack Power Extremely Weak, Agility 2, Constitution 10, Perception 2, Spirit 17, Defense, Normal, Mental Resistance, Normal Perception, Low Speed, Clumsy Rating Powers, Average Mechanism, Source of Evil +1. Lugia said that it looks like he needs to pay more attention to physical training. Mechanism, Source of Evil +1 Blocking Effect, Light Active Ability, Touch of Evil, Passive Ability, Suggestion +1 Enhanced Effect. Leader absorb 23% SP cooldown 10 minutes. You're one step closer to the Scoundrel of Legend. Now you are ready to meet the true head of evil. Thanks to your power, you can summon creatures that will become your minions and die for you. They are a projection of the main body, so their strength will be limited by yours. After death, a creature cannot be summoned again. Note, I know who you want to call, but first think about whether you are worthy. Smiling nervously, Lucha asked if today's note was too obvious. Seeing the inscription above his head, he read the description of his title effect. The target attacking you has a certain chance of receiving the curse status. Note, Auspicious Royal Rabbit. You are safe. The steel door clicked open. 2 armed men in black armor appeared in the doorway. One of them asked Lucha to help them with an experiment. The main character smiled, apologized, and asked what kind of experiment it was pushing him. The guard told him not to do anything stupid. Shaking himself off, Lucha said that they should treat him with great trepidation. The guard irritably asked if he was fragile. Another guard told him to shut up and not talk to people like him. The guard obeyed. They took him out of the detention cell. The hallway was filled with large screens surrounded by people in lab coats. On one of the screens, A man with black hair grabbed his teeth into the neck of a guy who was asking to be released. The scientist said that experiment number 7 failed. He gave the command to move on to the next one. Another scientist asked if there was a record of the decomposition serum being administered to the test subject. Because there was no time to delay, the man with the bald head on the screen was lying on the floor. The scientist said that the report on Project 97 had arrived, and after 4 murders, the evil indicator had increased slightly. Smirking, Lugia looked around and said that this is quite original. Security guards were running down the hallway saying that Subject 3 cleft lip seemed to be going crazy and calling for staff to come immediately. The guard repeated it again, and the main character asked about the hair lip. The guard, pushing him with a gun, told him not to stop and go. Lugia laughed and obeyed. He touched his palm to the blue screen. The door opened in front of them and the guard told him to come in. He whispered to him to just press the button inside. The main character thanked him with a smile. He was holding a device with a button in his hand. Remote control quality. Green effect. Using the latest type of signal invisible to most types of security devices. You can detonate the device with 1 click. The guard told the other, calling him Judas, to go to Dr. Mimir to protect her, and he would go to the cleft lip. Judas, raising his palm, obeyed. The security guard said that he was his confidant and he was confident that he would cope. Judas said with a smile that he could trust him. The steel door behind Lucha closed. Smiling, he said that the guy seemed to be trustworthy. A voice announced that the experiment was about to begin. The main character turned around. There was a centipede in the blue cube. Lucha asked if anyone would tell him what this experiment was. A hologram of a girl with glasses appeared in front of him. She said that she was Dr. Mimir, the curator of his experiment, and she would tell him what its essence was. Mimir said that this is Project 32, a brain snake that is able to enter the bodies of other organisms through the mouth and parasitize their brains. The blue cube began to disappear, and she said that once infiltrated, the object was using a foreign body as a mother body to absorb its best genes and produce better offspring. She added that the subject is extremely picky about food, and the more developed the brain, the more interesting it is, and stupid people do not bother him. Mimir said with a smile that they wanted to see if it was possible to potentially produce large numbers of offspring with extremely advanced evil abilities, and he was obviously the most suitable material for this. With her hand on her hip, she thanked him for his cooperation on behalf of the Disaster Association. Hearing a knock on the door, she turned around. Judas said that the task she gave him was completed. Mimir said that he was just in time. She asked what was wrong with Subject 3. Judas said that the detention team miscalculated the subject's mental power, which is why he woke up early. Mimir, folding her arms across her chest, said that an important experiment was at stake now because she should not be disturbed. Judas stood behind her, hiding a knife behind his back. Mimir said with a smile that she had one more question. Judas, gritting his teeth, said that he was listening. Judas swung his knife and Mimir asked how Judas died. 3 guards pointed their guns at him, standing behind him, ordering him not to move and to raise his hands, throwing the knife on the floor and raising his hands. Judas asked with a smile how she knew. Mimir, sitting on a chair, said that each of the staff members entering her office says a special code that only this person and she know about. She said the Judas code is SB 3960. She asked what he administered to subject number 3 other than the awakening injection. Smiling, Judas said that they found out about this too. An explosion occurred on the screen. The voice informed Mimir that there was a lot of explosives in the room of object number 1, and he had just gotten out raising his index finger. Judas said this. Mimir said she understood. She asked if he could tell him his name. Taking a graceful pose, he said that she could call him Nin Fong. The guards immediately opened fire on him. Nin Fong fell to the floor. Mimir said to notify all departments about the incident and submit a petition for payment of benefits to Judas' family. The guard with the beard asked, what about subject number 1 and whether to arrest him? Adjusting her glasses, Mimir said no with a smile because now the real experiment would begin. She ordered all exits to be closed and departments to prepare to record. The guard with the goatee asked seriously. Mimir said that Object 1 is apparently a time traveler. She asked why its meaning of evil was greater than theirs. She said that if they could study it, it would be a big breakthrough for their world. The guard said that there were still many of their employees in the detention center. Mimir asked what the purpose of the Disaster Association was. The guard, putting his fist to his chest, said, I am the truth. All the guards did the same and kneeling down and bowing, said, truth lives forever. The dialogue boxes say traveler. Please note that in this challenge you have been assigned a special status. Inner Ghost, you will enter the trial before other participants, so there will be a certain amount of time for you to take measures that will help your comrades escape from the Disaster Association. Thanks to your special skill, you will not be punished immediately after dying in this test, but will enter spectator mode. If your teammates complete the challenge, Your death will not be counted and you will be able to receive a reward. If they fail and do not complete the main quest, you will be punished by death. Lin Feng, top 10 best traveler ability. The curator scratched his head and said that he was too careless looking at Judah's corpse. He said that he originally planned to clear the boss himself, but it seems that the boss of this dungeon belongs to an incredibly strong person, so he had to replay everything. Looking at the 3 holographic screens, he said that fortunately, his abilities are not affected by death and he can think things through on his own. Lin Feng decided to look at his new comrades, looking at Jean Dali running away from the monster. He said that he was a weakling. Looking at Zhu Peng, he said that this girl is quite good, but she is too reserved considering her size. Looking at the steel door surrounded by smoke, he said that this guy did not deserve his status. Lin Feng raised his eyebrows in surprise. Lu Xia, standing on all fours, caught the centipede with his hands and said with a grin that he had caught it. Lin Feng asked why he didn't take the chance to escape, and whether he came here to have fun and catch bugs because the guards were about to come, squeezing the centipede in his hands. The main character expressed himself using obscene language blocked by the system. Lin Feng looked at the screen in amazement. Lu Jia continued to talk vulgarly about how he was an idiot who had been unable to get out of here for 18 nights. The dialogue box says launch using secret word success. The insect began to quickly shake its head, and the main character, laughing, said that he could no longer stand it. Lin Feng, clutching his head, asked what was happening and if he had problems with his head. Lu Jia smiled and told the insect that he had been told that he couldn't stand stupid people. He told him not to deny it because they were here for a long time. Raising the insect above his head, he opened his mouth and stuck out his tongue. The insect squeaked as it approached his mouth. The main character put it in his mouth. He swallowed an insect and it squeaked from inside his body. Then Feng shouted in shock that he was crazy. He asked where this crazy person came from and if the system couldn't find someone normal. Lu Jia exhaled, placing his hand on his stomach. The dialogue boxes say you get status parasite. You get weapons for tentacles. You gain the abilities squeeze, grab, throw, intimidate. All attributes have been improved. Lu Jia looked ahead seriously. Red tentacles tore his clothes on his back. For large red tentacles burst out from his back. The system reported that he controls his actions through a brain parasite. The dialogue box says due to the high resilience of your brain, the worm refuses to control you. Yin Feng asked in shock if this was even normal. The guards ran towards the open steel door, shouting that Subject 1 had escaped. There were orders to catch him. The main character, surrounded by red tentacles, grinned. He rushed forward with a wide smile. The order was given to shoot and stop him and the guards took up arms. Lu Jia dodged the shots by jumping on the walls. Soon he found himself among the guards. He hit one of the guards sharply with a red tentacle. As he landed, he knocked the weapon out of the other guard's hands. The main character hit the guard with a tentacle against the wall. Someone asked Mimir what they should do now. Mimir calmly told them to write it down. She said, Sample 1. The extreme meaning of evil is unknown. Based on behavior, it can be assumed that when a certain threshold of extreme evil is exceeded, disturbances in the logical thinking and cognitive judgments of the organism occur. The main character smiled and said that he had finally found the strength to protect himself. Turning to the tentacle, he asked if he could pull the thing back. Smiling, he said that if he behaved well, he would let him out. Otherwise, he would live in him. The tentacles immediately disappeared into his back. A huge red fish rushed to attack. Zhu Peng grabbed the fin with her hand. Taking advantage of the momentum, she flew into the air. She landed on the fish's back, pointing at it with a gun. Zhu Peng said that it was too troublesome and she should spend some resources and finish it off. There was a note on the fish's back. Surprise. Say that Nin Feng is the most beautiful, Zhu Feng said in bewilderment. Nin Feng is the most beautiful. The voice announced that the password was correct and a projector appeared from the ceiling. The voice said it was his modified Earth projector. He told her to keep her hand on it while using it and thanked her for her cooperation. After going down to the floor, Zhu Peng said, Shameless. The fish turned sharply in her direction. Zhu Peng with a gun flashed in front of the Earth projection. The fish bulged its red eyes. It immediately rushed to attack the round projection. The fish made a hole in the wall with its jump. The voice said that the task was completed, and he caught a note of contempt in her voice. While entering the password, he said that he hoped that next time this would not happen again, and that her tone would be more confident. The mount holding the projector has broken. Catching the projector with his hand, Zhu Peng asked him to try to avoid additional comments next time. She said it looks like this thing is quite expensive. Lin Feng annoyedly asked why she took his automatic modified projector and who the hell he was. Rubbing his chin, he said that it didn't matter. Her strength was quite strong anyway, so there was nothing to worry about. Looking at Jean Dali, he asked why a weakling like him was sent here when he couldn't even handle the monster. He added that fortunately, thanks to him, even trash like him can get through. He asked him through the speaker if he needed help. Jean Dali shouted yes with tears in his eyes. Something like a pill fell from the ceiling. The object fell next to the black monster. There was an explosion shrouded in electricity. Item: stun grenade. Green item properties. One-time use item: a grenade made from various concentrated paralyzing drugs paralyzes the target for 10s. Only works on creatures below strong level. Note: if you try to use this item during any risky maneuvers, you will be punished at the extreme evil level. The monster roared, shrouded in electricity. In Feng said the task is completed and he has 10s to kill him. He asked why, said a parallel trap. Jean Jindali jumped to the floor, straightening up. He pursed his lips and took the dagger in his hand. He slowly approached the monster who bared his teeth. Once upon a time, someone found an abandoned black kitten and said that it was very dirty. People threw small stones at the kitten. The guy grabbed the kitten by the tail, laughing, and asked his friend if he thought he could beat it to death. The kitten squinted angrily, blue eyes sparkling. Experiment sample 57. Since being taken into custody, has shown greater hostility towards people and has a need to consume human flesh and blood, which is likely due to life experiences prior to being taken into custody. A small black kitten stood among people lying on the floor covered with scratches. Record of the experiment. According to the results of the experiment, it is assumed that its potential is much higher, but due to the low indicator of evil, funding for further research was stopped. Jindali stood in front of a huge black lion, exhaling. He said that he had finally calmed down. Red blood sprayed. Blood dripped onto the floor. The monster looked at the pool of blood and gingerly asked what he was thinking about. Blood was flowing from his palm, and he said that he thought that his gaze was like that of a kitten outside the shelter, and he did not know what had become of him. He told the monster to open his mouth and drip the blood onto his tongue. Jean Dali's HP dropped to half, and he smiled and told him to stop because he would die if he continued to eat so much. The monster was licking blood from the floor. The system reported that the task was completed and the cat was calmed down. Turning around, Jean Dali said that the job was done and now it was time to leave here. Hearing a roar, he turned around. The monster jumped at him, sharp claws flashing. Jean Dali scarily told him to leave him alone. The monster began to glow with a bright blue light turning into a black kitten. He sat on his shoulder and meowed. Jean Dali asked if he wanted to go with him. The kitten meowed affirmatively, walking further down the corridor. Jean Dali said that he would be his dad or even grandfather. He asked why he looked so much like that cat from the shelter. The guards opened fire on someone with their guns. A gray-haired man with a beard dressed in a white suit with glasses laughed, ignoring the bullets hitting him. He immediately disappeared before their eyes, grabbing one of the guards by the shoulders. The man said that today was Thursday. On the blue screen was an image of an eyeball. The man smiled and asked if his 50 eyeballs were okay. The guard's armor crumbled in his hands and he fearfully demanded to be let go. The man said apparently not. He pierced the guard's head with his hand, holding 2 eyeballs in his hand. She said that he was missing 48 pieces. The guards turned around and began to retreat. One of the guards touched the device near the door. Another guard with his head in his hands asked who it was just now and why they couldn't just kill him. The third guard said, Sample 19. A crazy old man who was originally kept in a top-secret vault. Cursing, he said that today was Thursday. The man, laughing, said that they had not seen each other for a long time, and it was time for him to shake off the old days, especially since the situation allowed Sample 19. Crazy old man, extreme evil value 84-0. Danger level, strong upper conditions of containment. The crazy old man must be kept in a sealed room without any calendars, clocks, or other means of measuring time. Make sure that there is no way for it to calculate the current date. Thursday, December 22nd. Precautions. The crazy old man appears to be kind at first glance and is not dangerous under normal circumstances, but once he sees the time associated with the number 4. For example, Thursday, April the 4th, day 4 o'clock, and so on, the old man will become extremely excited and persistently asked for 50 random environmental items without receiving them. He will kill the target, leaving practically nothing left of him. Note: if anyone says Thursday again, feed the fool to the old man. The security guard asked about the top-secret vault. He said that only the director and those above can open it. Another guard grabbed his head and said that this meant they had been abandoned. The noise was heard in the corridor. The guard, falling to his knees, said that they would all die and the Disaster Society disowned them. Someone told them to get up and take their weapons. Standing in front of them was a muscular man with a serious expression. Captain Zhu Zhu told them to get out of here while he distracted item 19. Noticing the item in his hand, the guard asked if it was a decomposition emulsion. Another guard exclaimed that he would die. Zhu, injecting the emulsion into his neck, told them not to talk and to save themselves. He attached the pass to the device with his back to them. He said that, as their captain, he had to do this. The corridor was filled with the corpses of guards and scientists. There was a guard lying against the wall with a hole in his stomach. The main character said that it seems that many monsters have broken free. Noticing something, he sharply looked to the side. An elderly scientist with a bald head was lying against the wall. Noticing Lucia approaching, he began to sweat nervously. Lucia, laughing, said that he was very hungry, and the unfinished people were his favorite. The scientist begged him to let him go because he did not want to die with his foot against the wall. The protagonist asked if he thought it wouldn't happen because he didn't want it. He said that he really didn't want to be hungry. The scientist, covering his face with his hands, said that he was in charge of research here, and he would help him get out. Leaning towards him, Lucia told him to remember that he should speak right away if he has useful information, grabbing him by the neck with a tentacle. He told him to tell him everything he knew about research and association. The scientist agreed. He said that the Disaster Association is a huge organization whose purpose is to search for the truth. No one knows where its headquarters are located, and what is known is that their influence extends to absolutely everything. The branch under the leadership of Dr. Mimir faces a very important research task: find out the essence of extreme evil. The scientist said that for this study, they are constantly capturing creatures from different places to study the relationship between the indicator of extreme evil and them. However, after the first wave of research, they discovered that it was useless to expect stable results if the creature's evil indicator was not high enough. The bald scientist, standing next to the corpse of the red monster, said that if it was just a strong level, it was useless to conduct research. Another scientist said that they need stronger creatures, Dinacle for example. Even the association does not want to provoke creatures of a cruel level in vain. But recently, they finally had an opportunity. They learned that a battle had broken out between creatures of a ferocious level in one place. The battle site was completely destroyed and the creature was severely wounded. The scientist said that on his orders, the creature was captured, and this required significant financial costs. Dr. Mimir even decided to appoint him as the project manager. The scientist, gritting his teeth, said that the result should have come yesterday. However, Mimir then said that she had found a sample with a high level of evil, so she led the team herself and invested all her resources into this project. No matter how much she objected, she did not pay any attention to his words. Standing behind the protagonist, the scientist irritably said that she was simply jealous of him and his research, and he would conduct the research again and kick her out. He asked where she got a creature with an evil rating higher than ferocious. Because this is impossible, Lugia said with a smile that he understood. The scientist said with a desperate smile that even though she had blocked the main path, he knew the secret one, and if he helped him get to the cleft lip, he would show him that route. The main character asked if he had an idea on how to subjugate this creature to himself. The scientist, grinning, said yes, because after all, he personally developed this plan. Lugia agreed with a grin and told him to lead the way. Approaching the glass, the scientist said that the cleft lip was directly ahead, but he would not be able to go there. Looking at the man sitting on the floor, he said that this madman had found the elixir of decomposition and had completely lost his head. Lugia asked if this form belonged to one of his people. The man turned around and his face turned into the face of a monster. The scientist told him to look at what he did to himself to save a couple of useless subordinates. The monster angrily rushed to attack. He hit the glass hard. He then hit the glass with his head. The main character asked if he just said that he was trying to protect his people. The scientist said that they are low-level guards whose lives are worthless. He said they were just pawns and cannon fodder. He said that if they did not pay them for their work, it is unlikely that anything would change in their lives. Smiling awkwardly, he asked if he could handle it. The monster hit the glass with its head again, placing his hand on the scientist's shoulder. Told him to open the doors. The glass rose up, the monster said, "Take into custody, danger." He jumped into the attack and the scientist began to run away. The main character jumped onto the ceiling with the help of tentacles, dodging his attack. The monster turned around sharply. The shot hit him in the head. Zhou Peng, holding a gun, asked with a smile if he needed help. The scientist said that they are dangerous people and you need to stay away from them. Looking down, he said that fortunately there shouldn't be anything too dangerous here. Jean Dali apologized and said with a smile that he was too weak to fight so he would hide here. The kitten on his shoulder meowed ominously. The scientist exclaimed in fear that this was Object 597. Zhu Peng used a tricyclic spell Fireball. The shot rushed towards the monster. The flames enveloped him, and Zhu Peng raised her gun up. The monster jumped out of the stream of flames. Zhu Peng gritted her teeth and said that this guy is strong. Red tentacles wrapped around her waist. The main character pulled her towards him and the monster's attack missed. Zhu Peng asked what this thing was. Lucia told her not to ask. He said it was a fetter. The monster turned in their direction. Zhu Peng frowned and said that this thing is quite strong and he will leave marks on it. The main character asked if she didn't have skills with increased damage. Zhu Peng said yes, but it is not easy to hit Lu. Zhao lifted her into the air with his tentacles and told her to go. She exclaimed in amazement. He threw her forward, and Zhu Peng swore at him with obscenities that were automatically blocked by the system. The monster grabbed her throat with his hand. Opening his mouth, he wrapped himself with his other hand. The main character jumped into the attack, grabbing the huge scissors with his tentacles. He hit the monster's leg with the scissors and Zhu Peng broke free of his grip. Pulling the pin from the grenade, she said now she shoved the grenade into the monster's mouth. Lu Jia covered his mouth with tentacles. An explosion occurred in the monster's body. He opened his mouth, from which came black smoke. He fell to his knees. Zhu Peng said, displeased that he had gone too far. The main character, with a smile, said to consider this as a response to the shot with which she was going to kill him, and now they are even tilting her head. Zhu Peng asked with a smile if he knew about everything. Lu Zhao said no. Pushing the monster with his foot, he asked if it was alive. The monster, turning to him, asked to listen to him copying the disaster dungeon 5 minutes before start. The dialogue boxes say, please note that the traveler will enter the test space in 5 minutes. Objective of the mission: to ensure the stable operation of the research and prevent the 4 travelers from escaping from the disaster. Association. Reward extreme value 2,000 points. Please note that information regarding the advanced difficulty level will not be disclosed under any circumstances. Violators will be punished. Special cases will be subject to immediate destruction. The guard said that the travelers would arrive again. Another guard said he didn't know who it would be this time. The captain asked what they were doing here. He told them to prepare for the test. The guard said there was no point in preparation. Another guard said it was almost impossible to survive anyway. The captain smiled and asked what they should do to survive. The guards looked at each other. The guard said that he wants to get out of here, and if Mimir's words are true, then they will not be able to get out of here. The guard behind the captain said that he wanted to go outside. Another guard said that he wanted to confess to the girl he was in love with, because before he had never had the time to do so. Someone else said that he would like to see the world through the eyes of travelers hugging them. The captain said with a smile that he, like them, also has something he wants to do, so he promises to save their lives. He said that after Dr. Mamura succeeds in his research, he will write a letter to the management asking for a long leave. The guards cheered. The captain said that the elixir of decomposition drove him crazy, and thanks to it, he woke up, but he would not live long. The main character told him to say what he wanted. The captain asked if possible to let them go, because they do not want to be at enmity with him. They are just all under the control of noise. The red dialogue box says it is forbidden to disclose important information about an extremely evil game. Repeated disclosure of relevant information to a traveler will result in your destruction. The captain's eyes widened, cursing. He shouted that he was already dead and he was not afraid of him. Lucha grabbed his hands and covered his mouth with tentacles. Zhou Peng asked what he was doing. Lucha said that this is anti-theft equipment. He said to help him with something. He put the captain in the corner, raising his index finger. He said, firstly, more than anything in the world, he hates psychological pressure, and if someone interferes, he will not be able to endure it for long. He asked secondly, didn't his mother teach him how to behave? When he asks for something, its tentacles release the captain's mouth, placing his armor and possessions on the floor in front of him. He said that this was all he had. The main character said that this was not bad. He told him to continue. The captain asked if he would fulfill his request. Lucha said no. The captain raised his head in anger. The main character threw something on the floor to him. Picking up the object, the captain asked what it was. Medicine, panacea, artifact, blue effect, purple quality item from a pharmaceutical company. It can eliminate most diseases, including poisoning, curses, and other negative conditions. Unlike the original version, this drug has occasional side effects when used. Note they say that some men turned into girls after taking this drug. The company officially declares that these are all dirty tricks of competitors. Lugia told the captain if he wanted to save them, he should do it himself. The captain asked why he was helping him. The main character said that this is a regular deal, and he wants to find out what their mission is. The captain frowned questioningly. Lugia asked what task the system gave them. He told him to say as much as he could without triggering the destruction mechanism, and that was the price of the deal. The captain said that he understood him. He told him to listen carefully. The huge black lion loomed over the scientist who, clutching his head, called for help, saying that he was not a bad person at all. Jean Dali asked Zhu Peng if she had encountered something like this before. Zhu Peng said that this is an abnormal thing. Jean Dali asked in amazement. Abnormal, the main character, said to move on, raising his head. He said that he had a new idea. An elderly man wearing glasses was lying on the floor. He slowly stood up, shaking off the dust from his suit. He said, "Peace and light, not only pain and murder." Walking along the corridor, he laughed slightly and said, "But also worldly wisdom," standing in front of the huge steel door. The scientist said that here was Object 3, the cleft lip. Smirking, he said that if not for his serious injuries, they would not have been able to contain him. The main character asked that the creature was still quite dangerous. The scientist said yes because she is his best result. He told him to see for himself. Two people were visible in the huge room. A girl with dark hair wearing a white shirt was sitting on the table, sticking her toe into the guard's mouth. She asked if it hurt. She kicked him sharply in the face. Raising her head, she said it hurts. The scientist said it was great and he injected her with the 2000 cubic centimeters decomposition elixir, but no mutations occurred. Gritting his teeth, he said that with the exception of a slight light unconsciousness, all other indicators were normal and consistent with the experimental conditions. He asked why she didn't comply, putting his hand on his shoulder. Lucia said that he would give vent to his emotions. A little later, he asked how he planned to regain control over her. The scientist apologized and said that he was worried. Pointing his finger at her, he said, "As simple as shelling pears." He said that she ran away when the control settings were asleep, and he needed to set everything up the way it was before and the job would be done. Pointing his finger at him, Jindali exclaimed that he must be joking and he was sending them to certain death. Scratching his head, the scientist told them not to worry because he had equipment that would help them, and besides, there was no other way anyway. He asked if they wanted to get out. The main character agreed and told Zhu Peng that she would stay and look after him. Jindali asked what about him. Lucia turned around and asked if he had ever heard the saying about a father and son who would move mountains together. Grabbing him by the collar, he dragged him along with him and Jindali shouted that he did not want this. Pointing the gun at the scientist, Zhou Peng told him not to even try to do anything. The scientist smiled and told her not to worry. He said that he was at one with them, and he also wanted to get out of here as quickly as possible. The main character and Jindali walked through the large steel door. The girl sat in the center of the room in front of them. Dali asked what they would do. Lu Jia grabbed him with his tentacles and said that he was going there. He threw it tentacles forward. Dali fell to the floor in front of the girl. He noticed that she was down on the floor. She stood with a blank expression on her face, calling her Miss Delicate Scarlet Lips. Lu Jia asked how she was doing. Recognizing him, the girl frowned. Opening her mouth, she suddenly rushed to attack. The main character activated the main evil skill. With a grin, a white magic circle appeared under his feet. The dialogue boxes say, "Search in progress. Find a creature that favors you and is willing to become your minion." The girl with dark hair appeared from his chest and blocked the attack with her sword. The system reported that the call was successful. The girl, frowning, asked why the first person she sees is some kind of crazy woman. Turning around, she asked if he had called her summoned minion. Nightmare, butcher, cut version. Note the summoned object is a projection of the main body. The memory is not synchronized with the main body, and the strength and appearance will change depending on the strength of the summoner. The main character exclaimed in shock, stretching her hands. The Nightmare Butcher told him not to worry because she would protect him. Lucia told her to be careful because she is quite strong. She said she couldn't beat her. The monster girl knocked her aside with a single slap. She smashed her head through the wall and the main character asked if she was alive. Grabbing her head with her hand, the girl, displeased, asked what her level was. The monster girl jumped into the attack, raising her hand. The main character said that she had the same level as her. The girl blocked her attack with her sword. Small fragments broke off from the sword. She shouted that she couldn't win because he wasn't strong enough, and he was weakening her. Lugia swung the huge scissors and they bounced to the sides. He told her to just help stall for time. The girl wiping her face said that then she would not be afraid of her. Jean Dal, looking at the screen, asked if it was the controller. The scientist said yes and he needs to press the red button. An object appeared in Jean Dali's hand. The scientist asked what he was doing there because he needed to hurry. Jean Dali asked with a smile, "Isn't it clear?" He said he was planting a bomb. The scientist exclaimed in shock, and Jean Dali pressed the button. The bomb began counting down. 30s, he said now to give the key to the top. Exit to the beauty next to him. He said with a smile that otherwise his toy would explode. The scientist, gritting his teeth, said that this was pointless because it could not be destroyed so easily. Jean Dali asked with a grin if he wanted to see information about this thing. The scientist asked in amazement what he was talking about. Item information, hazard warning, quantum bomb, consumable, purple effect. When activated, this thing destroys absolutely everything. Don't ask me. High-tech. The scientist asked in shock where he got such an object. Zhou Peng, pointing the gun at the back of his head, told him to think because they are time travelers and if they die, it doesn't matter. But not this sample which they caught with such difficulty. Turning around, the scientist said that they had calculated everything long ago. The main character raised the scissors. The monster girl smashed the sword with a blow of her hand. She charged towards Lucia. There are 3 seconds left on the timer. The scientist took out an access card. Gingerly pressing the red button, thanked for his cooperation. The monster girl's eyes snapped open, stopping falling to her knees. She grabbed her head. Soon she fell to the floor. The main character asked the nightmare butcher if she was okay. Smiling, she said of course with her hands on her hips. She said that she had a fatal injury and they must have a good relationship if he was able to call her. Waving her hand, she said with a smile that she was glad to help him. She said goodbye. Lucia smiled and said that she was really quite interesting. Crouching and clasping his hands behind his head, the scientist said that he would give them everything they needed. Zhou Peng told him not to be nervous and first tell him how to use this thing. The scientist said that with this pass, they would be able to open the entrance to the upper floors. Zhou Peng, holding the access card to the screen, asked, like this, the dialog box says level a clearance check pass. Emergency exit open. Zhou Peng said that this seems to be true. The scientist said that this is natural because it is real. He said with a smile that without it, he would not have been able to give them a surprise. A transparent cylinder surrounded Zhou Peng. She kicked the glass. The dialog box says, face not recognized. The system makes a decision about enemy penetration. Emergency mode is activated. Zhou Peng asked about the artificial intelligence here. The scientist, adjusting his lab coat, said that fortunately his skills were still superior to theirs, but he had to admit that they managed to surprise him. Addressing Lugia as Site 1, he said that he was the person in charge of Site 3 and the main supervisor of this disaster association base. The main character said that he already knows who he is. The scientist, laughing evilly, asked if he thought he just knew him. He said that he had been planning this moment since their first meeting. The kitten roared and turned into a huge lion. He hit the steel door hard. The scientist told him that it would be impossible to break through the defenses here. He asked the main character if he had any idea how much effort he put into this base. He said that every step, the development of every plan, the writing of every report and every program was done by himself, collecting this place literally bit by bit, and no one knows it better than he. Jiaping said that this thing is too dense and she does not have the resources to destroy it. Noticing something, she raised her eyebrows. The scientist irritably said that he ruined everything because of him. An order came from above and his experiment was suspended. He asked why, placing his palm on the screen. He said that's why he wanted to solve the question that entrusted that woman by comparing him an object. 3. The girl suddenly opened her eyes. She slowly rose to her feet, and the scientist said that he wanted to know which project was better. Jean Dali, hiding behind the black lions, exclaimed in fear that she was getting up. He asked if he could fight her. Lucha asked with a smile if he could. The scientist said that he was sorry, that she was red hot. He told him to just imagine the power she would have if she were perfect. He ordered her to kill them. Looking at the piece of paper, Jean Dali asked if he should leave right now because who would want to face such a monster face to face. Looking at the black lion, he said that if he left, he would abandon him. Running up to the main character, he shouted that he would fight. Lucha said that he doesn't want to fight, but he doesn't say that he won't do it. The girl's hand appeared above his hand. Kokosake Ana purple material. Killer level. Body part has great strength, extremely valuable material. The main character said with a grin, if he so wants to see her perfect, then so be it. The scientist widened his eyes in amazement. Lucia threw the girl's hand forward. The girl opened her eyes in amazement. Her hand, shrouded in purple light, began to grow to her. She looked at her newfound palm. The girl said something in amazement. Streams of blue energy enveloped her. There was a warning on the red dialog box. The mark was approaching a critical value. Retention measures are almost exhausted. Please fix this as soon as possible. The scientist asked what was happening. He said that the cleft lips threshold for evil had increased to the limit. Zhu Peng called out to him, and he turned around and said irritably that he didn't have time holding the projector in his hand. Zhu Peng told him to look here. The scientist's eyes widened in shock. Zhu Peng directed a projection of the planet Earth at him. The red fish appearing, scattering stone fragments, slammed its jaws around him. A red dialog box indicated that the hold procedure had failed. The fish dived into the corridor floor and Zhu Peng began to run away coughing. The scientist asked what was happening here. He saw the silhouette of a woman in a cloud of dust. Object 3 stood right in front of him. The scientist exclaimed, smiling nervously. The girl's hand instantly pierced his chest. The scientist, coughing, looked in amazement at the hole in his chest. Machine guns flashed on the ceiling. The red dialog box showed a warning level. Personnel have been mortally wounded. The system will activate self-defense mode. The machine guns began to fire. There was an explosion behind the girl. With a flick of her hair, she broke the machine guns. The machine guns, shrouded in electricity, fell to the floor. Zhu Peng asked if this was ferocious level power. Jean Dali said that he is glad that he runs fast. Noticing Zhu Peng, he asked when she had left. She told him not to mention it because she had fallen into a trap and it was a shame. The scientist, smiling, said that it turns out that she is ideal and, as expected, the most suitable. Laughing, he said that he was right and his object is the strongest. The girl waved her hand and blood gushed from his shoulder. Losing consciousness, the scientist continued to say that he was right. Pointing his finger at her, he said that she was truly perfect. He fell to the floor. The main character, clicking his tongue, said that he was sorry that funding for the project was stopped. The girl turned around sharply. Jean Dali and Zhu Peng shouted to him to be careful. Stopping, they exclaimed in shock. The girl clinging to Lucia touched his face with her hand and said that they had met again. The main character said that they had not seen each other for a long time. The girl, cupping her face in her hands, asked if he came here specifically to surprise her. Scratching his head, Lucia said that he was just stopping by. The girl said she understands. Zhu Peng asked what was wrong with them. Jean Dali asked if they were old friends. Hugging the girl, the main character said that he needed to talk to someone. He asked if she would go with him. She agreed with a smile. Smiling widely, Lucia offered to finally meet with their long-awaited doctor. Want to see more? Write the secret word in the comments, Tokyo Ghoul. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel and like it. See you later and bye-bye.